I got some company. In reality, I got the lion and these three. So I got four. Gotta commence with gratitude and leaving late because I had to do a lot of laundry. It took me like 4 hours and a half to finish my laundry. Gotta be grateful for the laundry machine and grateful for the place where I have now, better than where I used to live in that small, tiny basement apartment years and years ago. Still on the island of Montreal in the underground basement. It was like a prison cell, not literally, but I didn't even have a bathtub. I have one now, and I took a bath like 2 days ago. I love bathing because I can substitute for massage therapy sessions. So always for the firefighters, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, plumbers, electricians, the welders, truckers, electricians, welders, all those involved in the production, distribution of food. Gotta give them a little bit of that rock and roll, and gonna cross a little bit to check it out. Beautiful flowers there. I love flowers like that. You know, that's something which, of course, always LOVE. When I see beautiful flowers like that, I find that very lovely, and it embellishes my march when I march. You know, marching, dance, workout, training, exercising, geopolitics, rock and roll. That's all what's going on with yours truly 24/7. You know, financially stressed, but at 4:44 a.m. this morning, it was actually 4:44 a.m. It's kind of when I gave the money, it switched to like 4:45. So I paid my rent, paid my electricity bill yesterday. Today is the 2nd of October, and then paid my electricity bill. Still one more bill to pay, the phone bill. Gotta pay that phone bill, and that's about it, you know. Then after pay the phone bill, I guess I'm gonna have to pay within the next 4 days. And today is the 2nd, so by the 6th, you know, by the 6th into the north, Friday, 3rd, 4th, 5th, yeah. By the 6th, I'm gonna try to pay it. If not, maybe on the 6th. Monday, always gotta be grateful, thankful, you know, rent's paid, and paid it again at 4:44 a.m., you know. Paid my electricity bill yesterday, and paid a little bit, not too much, of my credit line. I don't have a credit card, but I have a credit line, so that is gonna give me some support in case I need to spend $50 on food. But now I calculate that should be tight on the food, because that's my only stress, you know, food security. But somebody had provided yours truly with some food security, and I see that sunshine was the price of the gas, 156. So marching for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, the welders. Gonna get a little bit of sun. Late sunset, I guess we're gonna try to get as much sun as we can. Maybe go around where we can get some more sun if we can traverse on the other side. But I'm gonna go check, of course, the community fridge, see if there's some of that food, and always sharing with my anonymous friend. And yeah, because a little bit of moody, but not that moody, but a bit. Now that I'm out, always feel much better when I start working out, you know, taking some air, although we got a little bit of pollution. Gotta salute the public workers. We have a strike here, big strike, which is affecting a lot of people. The strike in the transportation. The STM, Société de Transport de Montréal, here in Montreal, Hawk Island, Canada, North American Collectif, always for the 10, the 50, and the 3. And gotta be saying that they have a strike going on, and it's gonna be affecting until next week, and until the 5th, maybe even later. And there's a voting going on, and we're not sure if it's gonna be holding on the vote. And now they got a little bit of that stuff, so I gotta traverse left or right, turn your head left or right, you know. Well, of course, when you turn your heads left or right, of course, when you cross, you know, when you cross the street, you gotta turn your heads left or right, and that's just something you gotta do, you know, turn your heads, because you never know, the brakes malfunction, the electricity might snap, and the citizen driver might press the accelerator instead of the brake. And you know, just a few months ago, I realized that there's a lion there. See, there's a face of a lion. I didn't even realize it before, you know. But there's a face of a lion. He looks mean and angry. Doesn't look too friendly there above. Things that you notice on those details when you do go around about a little bit, eh? And I guess you have to look up and look intently, because you might not notice it. But just I've been living in the neighborhood for years, and I might have noticed it years ago, but then I guess I got reacquainted with it this year, and kind of fun. It looks a bit angry and mean, but I have a case enough on my face, I guess. So marching, you know how we do the rock and roll marching edition, always overtime, and it's always for the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the plumbers, the electricians, always for the welders, how much welding has been done here. I guess in this 4 seconds now, if you look, you're probably gonna see some of that welding going on, and probably that bike needed some welding, and probably this one needed some welding with that. And I'm not sure exactly, you know, but I kind of estimate that there is some welding here. Maybe up there, eh? Maybe up there, all that. The balcony, eh? Balcony maybe trap. Maybe. I'm assuming, yeah, the balcony probably had some welding done. Welding, right? Probably the balcony. Maybe. I'm pretty sure. Let's check it out. Oh, I got some food there. Oh, this is good. I still have it, but this is good. Somebody had put it there, and this is all good food. Somebody gonna take of that food, and we're gonna check it out. This one. Oh yeah, this is good food. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm gonna eat it when I come back home. So that's added my food security, adding for my food security. And oh yeah, carrots, definitely. Just carrots, eh? That's gonna be nice. And thank you. I think it is a carrot salad, right? That's what that is. It's a carrot salad, eh? Pretty much that's what I think it is, eh? I'm not gonna open it now, but when I go back after my long march workout of more than 4 hours today, yesterday we did more than 5 hours, so today's gonna be this one here. I chopped carrots, so hey, yeah, I got a little bit of tofu. Maybe I'm gonna add some tofu with it, but probably tonight I'm just gonna eat a little bit. And there we go. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Somebody's been putting these bags of, like, this is the first time that I'm taking down one chopped, you know. This is the first time that I'm taking the carrots, but some other day there was rice pilaf. It was with tofu, and it was really good. So thank you, thank you, thank you for contributing to my food security. Is so important, you know. Food security is super important. It's crucial, you know, for that rock and roll. And now we're gonna go marching for those plumbers, butchers, electricians, the welders, and the doctors, the nurses, you know. Change some diapers, and the truckers on the road, railway conductors. Always got to think about all this civilizational privileges, you know. We'll see a little bit of that beautiful sunset, and gonna go marching towards the sun. And again, you can have a little bit of that drill there. See somebody put some food. I still have leftovers from that, so that's gonna be good with that. I like these ones. These little flowers there. These are really good. Yeah, these are yellow and the red. See? Quite beautiful. Thank you for planting them here. I always admire a little bit of flowers and how they're there. See on the side? So that gives me a little bit of that joy. Added joy. And now we're gonna just try to drive it towards the sun, you know, because that's what I'm gonna try to get as much sun as I can. So I calculate that if I want to get as much sun as I can, I'm assuming that the best way for me to do that would be to go parallel where the sun is on the other side completely, and just march on, go on Saint Jacques. There's a massage place there. I don't know. I didn't even call to see how much it was. I said if I can't afford it, but hey, any volunteers? I live a very fit, very active lifestyle. Every day I work out. I march for hours. You know, I have Asperger's, so with HFA, which is one and the same, and have these routines, you know, for years and years and years and years. It's always geopolitics, 24/7 rock and roll, and sports and fitness, dancing and working out training. And I even created my own workout training program system, and I encourage you all to do a little bit of that training. And I always admire, you know, people who begin their fitness journey, who lose weight. I lost between 80 and 93 pounds. Of course, it's something which I have to be also meditated about myself, you know. I know sometimes it's not easy, but you just gotta begin sometimes. Now you just say, hey, now I begin, you know. Today, I wonder how much they have rent there. How much do they have for rent? I wonder how much it costs for rent there to rent. I'm not looking to move at the moment. I just paid my rent, but I'm just curious. And I used to live in a very moldy place, very small. I didn't even have a bathtub. It was like a tight prison cell, you know. It was like underground, and on the go. That was something which we're gonna have to have like that. And that's just something which I gotta move out of the way here. So here you can check left or right, and that is of course something which we have of course to do now. and of course turn your heads left or right. And of course that is something which we have to do now, for that XYZ and XYZ, so that is something which we got. But of course it's something which we gotta be grateful for, so that is the reality of the love. Look at that beautiful gold, beautiful golden sun there, just striking on the left and on the right. So that is just something which we gotta admire now, of course, for the dissidents, where we gotta see that beautiful building. And I always wonder when it was built, when it was built. So I don't know when it was built, but of course probably somewhere where it got to be built in the consideration, of course, of all the things what we have now to do, and all that, of course, manifestations of my aspiness is that I'm weird, strange, and bizarre. So what I was actually calculating was the possibility of the expenses for the electricity bills, because I can only estimate, and if they have 3.5s, 4.5s, 5.5s, 2.5s, so 2.5s, 3.5s, 4.5s, 5.5s, 6.5. Of course, how many they spend, depending, it varies, My bill was about $72 for the Hydro-Quebec, 72 and 44 cents. So I don't know, in a building like that, I guess, but keep in mind that all the electricity is clean, zero pollution, zero emission energy now. So this is just a more ASPE traits, Asperger's is the neurological mental divergent condition, of course. It makes us predisposed, of course, to special interests, and of course mathematical calculations are part of it. So we always kind of calculate mathematics, mathematics, even when I can do mathematics all day. It's a love, that I have for math, and I just love it. I love doing it. It's a love that's a love that comes naturally in a way, It's an ASPE love. So even now when I was looking at that building, of course, I was calculating that building. It's something what we have, of course, to do, that ourselves we're doing, of course, under consideration, of course, where we are to be, XYZ, and of course, on the YZ, XYZ axis. When I'm making a reference of the XYZ, it's of myself, just to clarify, when I make that statement, that it's myself moving through the island of Montreal as I'm doing this video, because the Cartesian plane, you're the point who moves, and the point moves X, Y, Z. Well, you can move in 4 directions, actually, a roundabout even can be split into 6, but on the X, Y, Z axis, east, west, north, south, if you will, A, B, C, D, So of course all that component with it, of course the calculation, of course, of the cost of their electricity can only be estimated. But I was just wondering like that when I was looking at the building, and I was wondering how their finances were. Of course it's an estimation, and of course just logical mathematical financial deduction is that some are doing more than others, and then of course you have the feelings and the emotions, myself being stressed about it. It's something that I always gotta be mentioning. But now I am joyful, but just financially stressed, and I got my ideas, theories, protocols, and all the protocols, of course, for the implementation what we got. And sometimes we just gotta begin our fitness journey now and commence, and then move it for the drill furthermore. You can always, I'm not an expert in math, but you can always improve in mathematics, and you just gotta do it constantly. And just what I was thinking, of course, that it's a kilowatt in terms of the electricity and the cost cents per kilowatt. I would have to know their kilowatt consumption individually, and then we do estimation. So I would say that because there are 2 people where I live, and I kind of know my consumption, since mine was about 72, it was $72.44, then I would estimate that theirs there in the building, and even that building, is somewhere similar. Let's say between 60 and 90, even average could be what I averaged. But of course I have a different way, because you can have different way that you pay it. So the different ways that you pay it, you can pay it differently, basically. So you can make arrangements. So that you pay is divided, so that you pay co-equal. Monthly, you kind of come with about the average that you're gonna pay, right? So there's different ways you can pay, but nonetheless you kind of still pay the same per kilowatt. So basically is the consumption per kilowatt, because at the end of the day it kind of balances out, At the end of the year it kind of balances out. Basically you have to pay still kind of the same amount. Everybody pays citizen per kilowatt basically, but or I meant to say the methods of payment, to clarify, be specific, the methods of payment for Hydro-Quebec vary, right? Look at that beautiful flowers there. I just love these. They make me think of the Napolitan, eh? Napolitan ice cream. Look at these. I just got a post with these, just so beautiful, eh? Yeah. These just embellish my whole march. It's beautiful there in the corner. Just wow, thank you, thank you, thank you. Just, you know, get a dose of like joy, get a high without getting high from the flowers. And I love flowers. I love yellow flowers particularly, but red is my favorite color. As you know, I'm wearing red, and red hat, red. It's kind of like a jacket. Bought it secondhand about 8-9 years ago, maybe more than 7 years ago. More than 7 years ago. Auctioning it for $1 million to give half to my anonymous friend. And see, the consumption there is basically per kilowatt, right? So the apartment would be 1 unit. So each apartment, considering, let's say there's, I don't know, about 300 apartments, then we would have to divide to get an average for all this building. We would get an average mathematically. So sometimes I would look at, you know, look at apartments, look at cars, and of course I would do mathematics. So basically in my head, what's going on in these marches is also these calculations, you know, financial mathematic related calculation, you know. So these financial related mathematical calculations are of course protruded to what of course is going on a constant basis in my mind as an N.A.C.W.P. So this neurodivergence has its benefits, but it has its peculiar problems. And you know, every time I pass here, I wish I could paint this building here, painted some green, some red, some yellow, some orange, some colors of the rainbow. And of course that is what I will to do, but you just bring me the tools, I guess. We're gonna have to close it, I guess, close it for a day. In a day I think we could do it. If I get 4 other people with me in a day, we could just paint it. Probably a 12-hour shift and just volunteer. I would volunteer, you know. You can give me a few sandwiches, a bottle of wine if you want, you know. I don't drink much. Just I say bottle of wine is, or just give me a bottle of juice. But I was thinking that if we do it Friday and the Sabbath begins at Friday midnight, today's Thursday the 2nd, then it will be something which I could do. So just some sandwiches or whatever the case may be, and I would volunteer to do. Look at the moon, getting full moon, I guess, in maybe 4 days. And that's just something which we have, you know, there. And I was like, you know, something which I gotta be seeing myself. But there's just the estimation of the paradoxical prepositions where we are now, to get a little bit of that sun, because that was my main goal, to come this way. But it seems that the sun has already crossed on the other side, so we're gonna get it on the go. But maybe, let's say, once we reach the corner, maybe I gotta press the button here. See, press the button. Which one? This one, is it? See, it's this one. This is the button you gotta press. See, this one goes for that one. This one, usually they have an arrow. This one goes for that one, and that one has it for the other side. So that is just what you have to do. And turn your heads left and right, you know, because it's something which you gotta do it. Because if you don't do it, you never know, the car's mic, the brake malfunctions. If the brake malfunctions, then the citizen cannot stop because of the brake malfunction. If the citizen presses the accelerator instead of the brake, then that is an additional incurrence, right? So that is something which can also manifest. Please don't leave trash here, because we got greenery, you know. We got greenery we're trying to preserve. And of course I gotta take a look at the moon. See, look at that moon. That's moon. See, that's the moon there. That's the moon. That's the moon getting full. God is blessed. It's always God bless. God is blessed on this freestyle journey. Marching here between the fresh air, getting a little fresh air from the trees here. Hey, kind of nice that we have these trees right in between, and kind of beautiful. And gotta salute the ambulance drivers, ambulance workers, firefighters, plumbers, electricians, construction workers, welders, the people's artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitics, theoretical analyst, theorist, thinker, and strategist. Always for the 10, the 50, and the 3. Always for the 63. Let it rise and let it be. Always for the 63. Let it rise and let it be. Going towards that sunset. There's always a sunset and a sunrise somewhere in the world, right? That is always an occurrence. There's always a sunrise And always a sunset. Every second you gotta be manifesting God that. And that is always a sunset, always a sunrise. Every day, right? Those things are always happening. Of course, somebody left a little bit of that donation. That could be a little bit of money, I guess. Is that? Do they take this? I'm not sure. I guess I could use the money. I'm financially stressed, so maybe I'm gonna go check if they can take these, you know. Then I get... Oh no, they're just recyclable? Ah, maybe they don't take these, eh? I really don't know. Otherwise they have to be recycled. Otherwise they have to be put in the recycling there if they don't take them. So if not, I think I'll get $1 from these. Financially stressed as I am, eh? Guess every dollar matters. Sometimes the dollar adds to a dollar, that's to a dollar. And you know, I'm just calculating now. You know, the prices of goods have increased. Goods have increased, and price of gas always. Sometimes a lot of people don't discuss the effect of the price of gas. Effect of the price of gas for the consumers, you know. Effect of the price of gas for the consumers, how much it affects them personally, you know. And I drive these, but we're on strike now, and we're going to discuss a little bit of that strike. And I want to discuss also that the fact that here, laugh sometimes, say I come shop here sometimes, I'm not getting any payment, of course. As you know, I'm not endorsed by any public profit. I always say pledge your allegiance to our family. Hey, look at these are nice Canadians pumpkins, but here's Maxi, right? But sometimes I say I go to shop the Maxi, and somebody says, I never go shop a Maxi, I always go shop a Loblaws. A Loblaws. A Loblaws.
I'm coming.
Oh, you're coming to change them? Do you know? Do you know if they take these here?
Yes, it does.
Oh, thank you so much.
I just have to. Why is it? I know that one says full, but why is this?
I don't know. I just came here.
Yeah, blame the new guy. Well, this can be shaken, but
I have no idea. I'm just always fascinated by these machines, how they are. Yeah. Thanks. I just got these. That's all I got.
Alright.
Yeah.
How many are there?
12.
Okay, go to customer service.
You sure?
Tell them the bag is full and I'm changing it now. I don't want you waiting.
You sure?
Miska, are you going back to customer service? Yeah. Can you take those there? They're full.
Thanks, buddy.
Everything's booked in this bag.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. 10 or 12. Can I just get the cash, please? Thank you. No, that's it. I'm coming shopping over the weekend. Today, no, I'm only taking from you. Thanks. So sweet of you. Bye-bye. Hope you get a raise. Bye-bye. Thanks, buddy. Hey, thanks, buddy. Hope you get a raise.
No, I'm not going to get a raise.
I hope so. No way. It's like, no, I'm not gonna. It was so nice, man. You know, the workers deserve a raise, but they just want to get $1.20, so I'm grateful. Oh, I didn't put stop. It was filming the whole way. I thought I had put stop. Sometimes I press pause and they don't pause, but they get a raise, man. Anyways, that's $1.20 something, you know. Yeah, that's something what you gotta be doing. You like Metallica? You like Metallica? You like Metallica?
Yeah.
I saw your shirt, that's why I sing rock and roll, you know?
Oh, you sing?
Yeah, I sing
I
it.
love rock and roll.
Yeah? She loves rock and
I love
roll!
rock, but I'm more into new metal. If you listen to
Tell me a bit. Who?
new metal.
New metal? Like which
Yeah.
band? Which brand?
Tool, Deftones.
Tool, I don't know that much.
Slipknot.
Slipknot, I know.
Yeah.
You know Death SS?
Yeah.
You know Death SS from
Yeah.
Italy? That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Anyways, I didn't want to bother you. It's just I love rock and roll, so
Thank you.
you gotta sing it.
What's your stage name?
Rainbow Dragon.
Rainbow dragon.
Rainbow
That's
Dragon, because I'm part of the LGBTQ, you know, so
Oh, that's
yeah.
cool.
So I like both men
I'm
and
a
women.
search.
Yeah,
I'm
you
a
know.
search. Yeah.
So anyways,
Bye.
love you later.
Bye.
Love you later.
Yes, sir.
That's what it is with that, and I gotta go. When I sing that rock and roll, I gotta sing it on the go. You know I flip on the script, I gotta flip on the script, I gotta be. So you be it, so you trip it, so you know, up in the blast, up in the Rainbow Dragon. Yeah, get a good smile, you know, so you see a good smile with that, and that is what it is with that, you know. So something which we have, of course, to see on that, and we gotta get it on the go now, man. Always on that rock and roll now, you know, tripping on the rainbow rock and roll as I go for the workers. Left and right, keep the hands clean. Get dirty, but get back clean. For the workers, for the butchers, for the nurses, for the doctors. I passed and somebody I smiled and okay, they're well known. I'm not gonna say the names. We were wearing the Metallica t-shirt and I passed by and smiled. I think the person works there, you know, the person works there, and I said, you like Metallica? You know, Metallica gives some charity if you're a millionaire, billionaire, but it's a Rainbow Dragon stage name, you know. I ain't got a stage, I just sing as I go. The rock and roll is, so you know, on the truckers and the butchers and the bakers and the construction workers and the plumbers. Gotta get some work, you see, gotta be some left you be. On the left and on the right, so you know I gotta be. On the left and on the seas, for the public workers, gotta be so that you see, and you know you gotta train conductor, chop some me some workers, for the left and for the right, for the saying, that's a sight, for the saying, that's a sight, the left or right, that's the sunset and the sunrise, got a public workers, gotta meet some moon, freestyle, that's a way too soon, oh yeah, I could go rock, I could have sang the whole march, eh, oh yeah, I sing, you get me, get some beats, get some drums, get some rocket, get some guitar, I just sing. Hey, I'm not that good with the voice, but I realize I'm maybe not that good with the voice, but I got definitely the lyrics, like I create the songs, the linguistic rhythm, and you know, that's what I am good at. So I got 120, gonna put this in the savings. This was printed in 2015, you know, that's when I moved. Yeah, this is an N.A.C.W.P thing, you know. I would check on the money when it was printed. For example, see here, look at that. See, it says 2015, see? 2015, see? $2012. 2008, 2012, 2015. So 4-year difference, and then from the 2008 to 2012 to 2015, 3-year difference from 2012 to 2015, and then from 2008 to 2015, 7 years apart. Each one is not really a print because it's coin, but now I gotta wash my hands, you know, because of the microbes, because I touch money, and it's super important to disinfect when I touch that. And just if you see somebody in a store inspecting objects like this close to the face and looking at them for like a minute, then it's probably an N.A.C.P, somebody who has Asperger's, who's neurodivergent like myself. You see here, we focus on certain details, such as, of course, is this number. This number 7,315 can symbolize something, and this is an antiseptic hand sanitizer, so I'm gonna put it to good use now, because there's bacteria, microbes, and germs, just like it was during COVID, you know. So we gotta get, of course, those bacteria, microbes, and germs, and that is just what we gotta do today and tonight, and then we gotta get. Oh yeah, I put enough on the, not too much, just 4 drops, you know, just rub, and now I'm gonna rub 10 seconds. Maybe add 20, you know, just disinfect the hands, rub them. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then another one, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then add some more, and then add some more, and then add some more, and then do it again, and then add, and add, and add, and that's how the hands are. 1, 2, 3, 4. The hands are now sanitized and clean. That's nice. That's how we gotta get doing. You know, it's super important because I touched those bottles, I touched the money, you know, the money's super important. So there's basically, I'm keeping the protocols that were during COVID. The protocols that were designed to help us during COVID, I try to keep those habits, you know. I guess I'm making new habits as I don't know my life prior to 2014 and how I was before February, January. Basically winterish 2014, winterish. So if you don't know about my story a little bit now that I'm discussing is I have trouble remembering my life prior to 2014, January, February 2014. So my life prior to January, February 2014, that's a long time ago, eh? That's more, because we're October now, so more than 11 years and a half ago, more than 11 years and 7 months ago, more than 11 years and a half. So 2014 is a long time ago, but January, February 2014, I don't know if I was a junkie. Sometimes I say maybe because I was doing so much alcohol and I was doing so many drugs, and I just remember I was viciously attacked by surprise. You know, I survived a vicious surprise attack. What does that 200 C.W.P means? And gotta salute the public workers. Thank you for the aqueducts. I gotta give a little bit of salutation with that, and that's just the drill with that, and that's just what we have, of course, to be mindful about. So, Rock&Roll, eco-container, bamboo flooring, interesting. So, I don't know if it was because maybe I was doing drugs, maybe because I was a junkie, I was doing maybe drugs, and maybe I was an alcoholic. I don't know. I don't do drugs, I don't do alcohol. Very rarely I even have cannabis, which I purchased about 3.5 years ago. I live a very active lifestyle. I was depressed and suicidal for like 3 years, you know, from like summer 2014 until 2017, and I got out of depression. And always got to check a little bit of these. Let's see where these are made in the USA. So crossing Canada coast to coast maybe come out of my depression, and before that I was depressed, I was suicidal, I was depressed, and I crossed Canada coast to coast, and yes, it's made in the USA. Made in the USA, made in the USA, made in the USA, made in the USA. So I crossed Canada coast to coast, and that event made me come out of being depressed and suicidal. And just because I mentioned before Maxi, some people also say I don't go to Super C, I go to Metro, but actually Metro owns this is a big store which I go often to, also parallel to that one, because sometimes for the specials I go which one's the most affordable because I'm financially stressed. So but it's a paradox because I laugh when I hear people, I don't go to that store, but you do because they're owned by the same company. Sometimes not those, that one and that one owned by different companies, but when you say here Super C or Metro is the same company, Metro Inc. Super C is owned by Metro Inc. Just like Maxi is owned by Loblaws. So people say, I don't go to Maxi, I go to Loblaws. But you do, because if you go to Loblaws, you go to Maxi. It's like kind of an illusion how the whole corporate structure of the ownership is structured layer, the ownership of the corporations, and we got the big three here. Anyways, so I traversed Canada coast to coast in 2017. That summer. And that event got me out of being depressed and being suicidal. You know, that was a major turning point in my life. And of course that changed my whole life, changed my whole dynamic, changed my whole life. And that was just great event in my life, you know. I was depressed and suicidal. I always say if I wouldn't have crossed Canada coast to coast, that's when I established the strongest spirit accord with my fellow Canadians. I would have probably been dead or taking my life, or who knows, maybe I'd become an underground criminal, nice kingpin or something, or who knows, you know, maybe on the streets, or who knows. But I moved in 2015 to a better place, a way better place now where I live. I used to live in this, still on the island of Montreal, in Côte des Neiges, an underground small prison type of, it was like a prison cell basically. It was a small underground basement. I didn't even have a bathtub. The bathroom was so small, and the kitchen was in the room. So I had a room and a bathroom with no bathtub. It was so small, probably tiny underground. Little basement, you know, literally basement underground. I don't know how many years I lived there, but according to some documents, I lived there for at least 4 years. For at least 4 years I lived there, you know. So that is just what it is with that. At least 4 years, and that was of course just the management where it is now. At least 4 years I lived there, so I don't know, because I got documents from the lease, the lease that I was paying. I got documents from me living there from 2011, something like that. 2011, and even I think some from 2010. So maybe more than 4 years for sure. Maybe more than 5 years, maybe 6, 7 years. And sometimes memory comes back, but I have trouble remembering my life prior to winter 2014, like January-ish, February-ish. But considering that we're 2025 now, that we're in October 2nd, that's a long time ago, right? That's wow. It's a long time. So I don't know, maybe memory comes back, or with hypnosis, maybe. I remember I have to go, I've given myself a deadline, October 31st, to go retrieve the archives of the Jewish General Hospital, to go retrieve the archives, because I remember I survived a vicious surprise attack. So I was hit in the head and the fist, pock, 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 pock. I don't know if it was with a blunt object, with something in the hands or something, but I survived that vicious attack, I survived that vicious surprise attack, and I don't like violence. Doesn't like violence with that, but he doesn't like, I don't like violence, but of course I survived that vicious surprise attack, So I'm hyper vigilant, I live hyper vigilantly, but I don't like violence, I'm somebody who doesn't like violence at all, but I'm hyper vigilant, So I'm gonna get a little bit of that defense, But I am hyper vigilant, so I live with this hyper vigilance like that, and that's just how I live with, Here we go. We got a little bit of that moon, a little of that moon side on the left and on the right, and indigo, and on the left is the moon, on the right is the sun. So of course, all that preposition is that I am hyper vigilant, but I don't like violence. But I was bloodied up. I survived that vicious surprise attack. I was hit in the head, hit my head on the concrete in the Montreal metro, and had a dislocated right arm, right shoulder. No, I don't know about that. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I know that there were conspiracies, such as the assassination of those who conspired to assassinate Donald Trump, if there were more than one in his 2 assassination attempts. Although one looks a bit skittish, I gotta say. I don't believe it was necessarily a setup, but one just looks a bit awkward. But one was kind of for real. I don't know. But I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't believe much in conspiracy. I have questions surrounding the plane 77, supposedly, which struck into the Pentagon. Supposedly, this was plane 77 who struck into the Pentagon, I have questions regards to that. Plane 77 which struck in the Pentagon. That I have questions about. That plane is, how did it get so low and be able to strike like that? I guess there's maybe some weird, but I don't believe in conspiracy theories like 9/11 was an inside job. By whom? Now, for what purpose? I guess it would be more questions to ask, and how come they didn't get caught, Some say it was Papa Crowley, but Papa Crowley was already in the grave. Must have been his ghost, a shadow. I don't know what was going on in the head. All I know is that rock and roll on the road. For the firefighters, rock and roll butchers. I rock and roll for the workers. Always for the 63, the North American Collectif. Always, of course, for those who are involved in the production, distribution of food. And I love that red, that's what I love. And there's got to be a little bit of that red with that. And that's just something which we have, of course, to be there. And we have to go get it on the go now to be, of course, on the gratitude, because I survived there. I survived, and there's just something which you have to be doing with that, and that is something which you have to be considering about where all the protocols, of course, for the North American Collective involved themselves to be at this point in time. That my survival, having survived that vicious surprise attack, I guess, makes me hyper vigilant. So I was attacked by surprise. It wasn't, just a surprise attack. It wasn't, let's go, let's do this, let's fight. There wasn't anything like that. And there was no dropping of the gloves. There was no, it's just a vicious surprise attack. And I was hit in the head. I fell, had a dislocated right arm, right shoulder, was bloodied up. Went to the Jewish General Hospital. That's why I gotta go there to retrieve my archives. Maybe I'll send them an email tonight and go directly. Hope they have those records, because I have the same social insurance number and the same RAMQ card here. We have the medic healthcare. We have a number a number, and I wonder when it was. And I went to the Jewish General Hospital. The right arm shoulder was cracked back, placed back. Look at those beautiful yellows. Was cracked back, put back. My shoulder was kind of cracked back, put back. These are yellow too. I don't know. And I was given some meds, you know. I don't know. I think the meds were for the pain, but. And then, just there's a blackout, you know, retrograde amnesia from my life prior to that time. It's just there's a trouble, you know. It's like blackouts, like access denied, or you know, memory gone, I guess. But because sometimes it comes back, you know. Just have these flashes, you know, of this unspeakable needs, you know, and all these problems which I have now are just financial. Hey, look at you! You survived in October. In October, yellow, that I love you. Gotta hit the ground. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, I think there's more. There's more than 4. The 4 that are big and blossoming. The other ones are kind of closing down. Gotta be, of course, on the go, and that is something which I gotta see, you know. All the consequential apparatus, gotta see a little bit of that rock and roll to get it doing like that, and there's just something which I gotta be seeing, you know, to get it on that. Gotta be, of course, on that rock and roll. So now we're gonna go all the way, of course, to the XYZ, and so we're gonna get that drill, and get that love, and somebody's holding hands and kissing there. That's why I sing that rock and roll, you know. That's something which gives them hugging and caressing a bit, you know, kissing couples. I like that, seeing couples and loving, you know, because it's not all about the money. It's not all about the Wall Street, you know. That paper money is, you know, that's what brings me some joy, and that's worth, of course, being armed and carrying a weapon for. Hey, Mr. President, Prime Minister, the King is absent, and it's not all about the money. You know, I don't have rich trillions in kisses, trillions in marching steps, trillions in rock and roll lyrics, trillions in rock and roll lyrics, trillions in kisses, trillions in rock and roll lyrics, trillions in kisses, trillions in trillions in rock and roll, trillions in marching steps, kisses, lyrics, and trillions, of course, I guess, of hugs. And you know, just earlier today I just saw also, I think they were like 16, 17, and they were hugging. They hugged after school, and that's it. I smiled. I said, hey, that's also hopeful, you know. The youth are innocent and loving, and that's also important, you know. And now see how my brain now works because of this neurodivergence, and maybe I was attacked because I was different, and I am different, you know. Just gonna press this pedal here. It's not a pedal, but it's like a metal. I'm gonna press it like this so I don't touch it directly because of germs, bacteria, microbes. And this, of course, is allowing us to cross on the other side. And of course, I'm not gonna get much sun, but I'll get a bit, I guess. I'm gonna get a bit, a little bit on that way, as we're gonna go parallel to that side like that towards the sunset. I was thinking of getting some sunlight, but maybe tomorrow's another day for sunlight, as a nice weekend's coming. So if not during the weekend, because I did 2 laundry loads. I thought I was gonna do 1, but then I had to do 2 because of course I had to wash hoodies, auctioning everything that I'm wearing, $1 million. Give 50% to my anonymous friend, the underwear, the jacket, the shirt, the socks, these jeans which were gifted from her, the cap, the hat, and the other things that I'm wearing. So it's about 7 items, right? Each item $1 million, and that's gonna be 7 divided by 2, $3.5 million for me, $3.5 million for her. And financially stressed. My only stress now is financial, and you know, I'm different, and we are different ourselves as who are Aspies, who have this neurological mental condition known as HFA. It's high functioning autism, right? High functioning autism is a neurological mental divergent condition. It is not a mental illness. That's why we have to draw the line. It's not a disease. It's not an illness. You remember citizens were at work a few years ago. They were whispering in French, because here we speak some English, French and English bilingual, you know. And they were whispering how, you know, let that be because that's a disease. They were in reference to me, but it's not a disease, you know. It's just, you have to understand that Asperger's, we Aspies who are on the spectrum of autism, we have more difficulty in social interactions and understanding social cues and mannerisms. We have to be told more directly. So we have to be told more directly, and because we are sometimes ourselves rather can be seemingly abrasive or direct or straightforward sometimes, we might be seen as rude or offensive, but it's not because we mean to. We just because our brain is different, so we don't perceive the same social cues and information the same. We just don't process social information the same. We have our strengths though. We have above average mathematical skills. So when it comes to mathematics and things of that nature, or when we're involved in our special interests, usually our special interests, we rock and roll and we excel. And no, not all Aspies, not all people with HFA is one and the same thing. That before 2013, 2014, it was more known and called, the condition was called Asperger's. Now it's known as HFA, high functioning autism, more, but I use both, and a lot of people still use both. High functioning autism, because it merged with the spectrum of autism, basically, right? So HFA, high functioning autism, and Asperger's is one and the same neurological mental divergent condition. Is one and the same neurological mental divergent condition. Just that is something which you have to keep in mind and remember. So basically it's the same thing, right? When I say HFA, high functioning autism, or Asperger's, I'm referring to the same neurological mental divergent condition with which I don't even use the word affective, because affected, it's not a disease, it's just we're less capable in certain things, yes. And even using the word disability is partly not that cool, not that cool to use it, because it's not really a disability. Yes, in certain social conditions, social aspects, we might not know, if somebody has an interest in us, or if somebody necessarily wants to harm us. And I learned myself, I learned it, of course, from the books. Thank you, my anonymous friend who donated me 2 books about Asperger's, correction about autism, and they have several chapters on Asperger's. And of course, the other books, one book which was loaned 4 times from the library, it's called Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome is, of course, a book that I recommend to all. It was loaned 4 times because it was a library loan, and I found out how these vulnerabilities, because of this neurodivergence and how we perceive the world differently, how it can be, of course, used against us, and how we are vulnerable in certain situations, especially social situation, which when we are different and bizarre, we can seem like we're bizarre and weird and awkward and strange, but not evil and bad and malicious. Because see, they were supposed to cross on the right side. See, it went from yellow to green, but this lane, actually, when you step on the first lane, you're supposed to be aware that it goes on the side which you're supposed to go on the other side there. So that was the mistake. And often in my videos you see that they're getting honked because they're supposed to stay on the other side. They're supposed to stay on the other side, right? Because that is to cross on that side, to turn right, basically. If you're staying on the most right lane on that side, then you have to be aware that there's a line there for people to turn right, like that white car there is on the 4th lane. See, there's 4 lanes, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So on that extreme lane, almost there, people can turn right. So that's why he's going straight. See, the car, he or she, the driver, is going straight while the other ones are taking to the right. So that was the mistake. That's why he got honked. You follow? See, like that, it's to turn right there. That's why they're turning right. You're supposed to stay not on this first or on the second. You're supposed to stay on the 3rd or on the 4th, because there's 4 lanes. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. See, where the bus comes, that's the 4th lane, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So the ones that are the first and the second are to turn right side, because that's the right from that side, and these ones are from. I have a driver's license. I have to renew it, but these you don't lose. Linguistic skills, mathematical skills, language skills. I'm a polyglot, but just personal memory and things that you learn, such as driving, such as mathematical skills, such as language skills, you don't lose those skills. It's just personal memory, So I might necessarily not know when I learned Spanish, because I speak Spanish, and things of that nature, and I can detect other languages which I kind of know, like German and other languages. Just what it is: Hungarian, Romanian, Italian. I'm gonna go Zamenhof. Professor Zamenhof supposedly spoke 11 languages fluent, but he invented Esperanto. I'm not gonna go into linguistics and that. Who knows, whatever it is. What I remember mostly is the past 7, 8, 9, 10 years, 11 years, and it kind of blacks out before that. So maybe surprise attack, being hit in the head, or maybe drinking, you know. Maybe I was an alcoholic, maybe I was a junkie before, I don't know. I don't do drugs now, and last time I smoked a cigarette was just barely a few puffs when I crossed Canada coast to coast in 2017, and cannabis here is legal in Canada since 2019. Last time I took a few puffs was during COVID, years and years and years ago. I had COVID at the beginning, 2020 February. I thought I was gonna die. Maybe I got triple vaccinated, maybe COVID, but COVID, and then 2014. It's strange, whatever the case may be. I'm gonna discuss now Asperger's. It's more important my work as it relates to what I will the most as an androgynous, pansexual, Aspie artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical theoretical analyst, and theorist, and great independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, philosopher, and strategist. Always for the 63, always for the 63, and you know, you got a single bit of that rock and roll. So Asperger's is not a disease, it's not an illness, right? It's a neurological mental divergent condition, and no, not all Aspies are good at computer science. Yes, it's a disproportionate number of people with HFA Asperger's who are good at computers, It's about 20%, which is 1 out of 5, comparing to your proportional mathematics of neurotypicals, which stands at around 1 to 4%. Always for the 63, let our empire rise and be. Pledge your allegiance, legions, thou our family. Beautiful yellow, how they grown here. Yeah, look at it. Hello, yellow, yellow, yellow flowers. On the sunset, gotta see. So it's not a disease, Asperger's. That's where we have to draw the line. And it's not evil, it's not bad, it's not negative, it's not malicious, it's not demonic. It can be, and it is in certain characteristics, and I learned to laugh a lot of myself also. It can be weird, strange, awkward, bizarre. Yeah, it can be bizarre, awkward, weird, strange. Strange, weird, bizarre, awkward. It can be bizarre, awkward, strange, bizarre. Weird, awkward, strange, bizarre, right? But not evil, bad, negative, or malicious. That's not at all nothing to do with that, right? So that's nothing with that. Not bad, not evil, not malicious, not negative. That's what you have to keep in mind, right? That's what you have to keep in mind. Look at those yellow there. Hey, beauties, hey? Bees love those, and these ones right hidden right there. See? Are those 2 black pipes there? See? So it's not evil, it's not bad, it's not negative, it's not malicious. That's where we have to draw the line. To give you an example, again, I told you that not all Aspies are good at computers, but a disproportionate amount compared to you, the neurotypicals, with which we have to build bridges, because you are the 99%, right, of the population. You are neurotypicals, right? So we might be perceived, for example, yes, when my friend has been told me for years and years and years, when I was in the store going shopping with her, he said, you know that people are watching you and thinking, what's that weirdo doing? Because this could be an Aspie. If you see somebody doing that, could be somebody who lives with the same neurological mental divergence as myself. We would inspect close to the eyes the objects for like a minute or a few seconds, depending on the variation, and we would check those details. Those details can sometimes, of course, be weird, awkward, bizarre, strange details, such as I said, that number there, for example. The number on this. See, for example, here. I'm going to show another product. See? That number there. See, you can't see, that one's too small. I'm going to take the other one. This number. 7,315. So we would the objects, whether cans or bottles or plastic little bottles or cans or bars of soap, bars of candy, or of course bags, or like close to the eye, you know, like that. They might say, you know, might look, and my friend for years and years and years, you know, she's been she told me that, you know, you have Asperger's, you have HFA, and for years and years and years and years I was in denial. I refused it. Not just her, but people who have experience with autistics, with people with Asperger's and autism, people who have experience with people who are on the spectrum, you know, have been diagnosing me for like, have been telling me for like 9 years now, since 2016, but for like 5 years, more than 5 years, I always said no, 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 no. I did not want to wear the label and accept this neurodivergent, because it's still there's less and less and less and less stigma, but it's still different, eh? It's still sometimes more difficult to build bridges with neurotypicals, because we view the world differently, and so we see the world differently, and we are less able socially in maintaining friendships long term, maintaining employment. It's a very high unemployment rate for Aspies, unfortunately. It's catastrophic, 80%, 4 out of 5. And we're just less than 1%. The official diagnosed population stands at 0.44%, and it's about 0.88%. Because it's, in reality, it's about double in terms of North American Aspie population, because the Aspie is basically who we are. As myself, as an individual sovereign Aspie who's androgynous, pansexual, I lived many past lives. I'm also a mystic. I believe in reincarnations, past lives, and sometimes I was born a man, a woman, a woman, a man, a man, a woman, a woman, a man, a woman, a woman, a man, a woman, man, a woman, a woman, a man, a man, a woman. You get that 50-50 now. I'm androgynous, and you get to check a little bit of those grapes here. Yeah, these are edible grapes, and from here, a few years ago, I have it online. You can see me taking grapes from here, washing them, and of course washing them and boiling them and making juice for the winter, because amazingly they grew here from this place. See, just gonna see, I have grapes here. It will be a place to eat grapes, you know, where in a worst food security scenario, where food security is extremely scarce, like a nuclear winter, thermonuclear war, World War III type of scenario. They're a bit of a good, they're wild grapes. Wild grapes from the wilderness, into this privilege of civilization, because civilization is a privilege. That was my thesis back in 2029. So back to what I was saying, that Asperger's is not a disease. I wonder what's being done in this building. This could be a great headquarters for the Dragon Army. Great headquarters for a Dragon Army, potentially. Could be turned into a great headquarters for the Dragon Army, potentially, right here. I see there's some light, and maybe it's still being used, I guess. And if not, it could be a great headquarters for the Dragon Army, and calling for the public-private partnership, of course, since many years now during COVID, for the formation of a vast public-private partnership across the North American Collective, across the 63, and furthermore for the NATO complex. I'm going to get into that, because that's what I am fundamentally, not just an artist athlete, but an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, philosopher, and strategist. So I'll keep it short on Asperger's. Is an HFA, is this condition which I live with, and we have certain characteristics, traits which are weird, you know, such as breaching personal space. An Aspie might get very close to somebody, you know, like 4 inches close instead of the 4 yards. And thanks to that book, Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, which when I have money, I'm going to order it and buy it. It was loaned 4 times from the library. It was a library loan, and my friend, thank you for loaning it for yours truly. It was loaned 4 times, and it was loaned from the library. I read it, and especially a certain chapter, it had illuminated me and taught me how, because of my difference, especially when it comes to the lack of understanding of social norms and written rules, and that come very easy for you, for the neurotypical, the 99%. These things are very, very easy. For us, they can be very hard because our brain has these mutations. And again, the cause is inconclusive. It's not it can be genetic, hereditary, that is biological, or it could be also environmental. So now there's a controversial statement that what can cause Asperger's and autism in children is the pregnant mother during pregnancy, the use of Tylenol, which is actually a brand. It's not Tylenol per se. It's just the acetaminophen. When I say that word, it kind of triggers past lives, reincarnation memories from ancient Egypt till today. And I was born in the United States 3 times post 1776. Once as a woman, twice as a man, served in the same United States Armed Forces twice, served in 2 different wars, previous incarnations, same US Army. The wars were 156 years apart. Wars were quite a distance in the timeline. Today's October 2nd, 2025, in the year of darkness, my parallel self, where I'm also an N.A.C.P., but there I build, design super satellites, super computers, super microchips, super antennas, super smartphones. It is the year of darkness. December 1st, 2029. It is the year of darkness. December 1st, 2029. In that parallel life, it is the year of darkness. December 1st, 2029. In the year of darkness, in that parallel self, where I also have Asperger's, but there my special interests have been science and technology, and that's what I work in. So it can be very weird for a neurotypical. The perception can be weird, You can say that's a weirdo, that's strange, that's bizarre, strange, weird, awkward, odd, in relation to certain manners, certain characteristics, certain bodily movements, certain things as inspecting close to the face the objects that we inspect in the store, as my friend has been telling me for years. And also, thanks to that book, which I recommend to all Aspies and neurotypicals alike, appreciating Asperger's syndrome really opened my eyes to my own vulnerabilities. I always have to be attentive and work and be careful, because there's certain things which my brain has these mutations, and thus in certain things we have our vulnerabilities, and because of how we lack these social awareness, we lack social awareness and social dynamics where we have now, and we can be vulnerable in certain situations, just vulnerabilities and all that, and that's just what we are today and the life, and that's just the brain interpreting, psychic mental capacities interpreting social cues, and we have to be told more directly, and we have trouble with the social cues, So I'm androgynous, pansexual, and that is just what I am, and that's just how we're gonna rock and roll with that, and just how we drill it, So that's just something which I gotta be aware myself, and my awareness is now more prone to being fully myself, as an androgynous Aspie artist, athlete, philosopher, who is also a mystic, who is willing to build bridges, small, medium, large, extra large. Those 4 categories of bridges: small, medium, large, extra large. Is just like when you order a coffee, you might order a small cup of coffee, medium cup of coffee, large or extra large, or fries or coffee. When you order, you might order within those 4. That's just how we got to build bridges between ourselves, neurodivergence, and you neurotypicals, with which I don't have antagonistic, resentful, bad, negative feelings towards. I do not. I suffered, struggled, and as the problems we have, the 4 main problems Aspies have, can be worked on with, for example, lack of friends, I had made friends, a lot of friends, especially in the LGBTQ community, but it's losing them, you know. Losing friends has been problematic because we're different, you know. And it can be tough for neurotypicals to be friends long term with Aspies, you know. It can be tough, but it's not impossible. So that's why from now on, just don't waste my time. I won't waste yours. Pretty clear and straightforward. Friends with benefits only. Friends with benefits only. Friends with benefits only. And that's it. Friends with benefits only, you know. And friends with benefits only. Friends with benefits only. It's friends with benefits only, you know. That's about where we draw the invitation, you know, on the table. Friends with benefits only, or pledge your allegiance to our family. The other problem we have, unfortunately, is very high unemployment. The unemployment rate for Aspies is at 80%. That's 4 out of 5, right? So that is very, very elevated. And again, not all Aspies are good at computer science. Yes, proportionally, the mathematical statistical proportion vis-a-vis the population is way more, about 11 times more than the neurotypical population, which is around 1 to 4%. Us, it's around 20%. So yeah, in that case. But when you have 80% unemployment, then don't give me the, yeah, you know, but there's billionaire Aspies. Okay, but those are billionaire Aspies. They need to finance to lower the unemployment rate and put some Aspies to some work or to some financing of some volunteering or financing for the rehabilitation, as my dream is, of course, to implement the DRT and for the North American Collectif, because we got work to do, especially the rehabilitation of the public sphere. Public sphere. You see the highways or are kind of on the collapse side, you know, so that is just something which we have to do, you know, in the proposition where we are now. So lack of friends, high unemployment, very high. I had many jobs. Hey, this is a mess. We got work to do. That's why we need the DJ. Don't leave the trash here. Look, we got wilderness here. What's that? Put it in the garbage, put it in the recycling. We have workers who take care of this. They take care of it. And thank goodness, thank goddess goodness that we do have them, you know. We gotta be grateful for having them. Just gonna go that way. We gotta be grateful for having them, the workers, and just less pollution, you know. So lack of friends, or very few friends, very high unemployment. I had many jobs even during COVID, you know. I had many jobs myself. I just lost them often, you know. He's losing the jobs often. Or last 4 months or 4 days or 4 weeks or 3 months, you know. So long-term employment is a problem for Aspies, and gotta sing some rock and roll for the public workers who rehabilitate the aqueducts, who fill up the potholes. I know they're paid by the hour, but with the cost of living having increased, we got the strikes going on, so it has been very problematic, because paying bills, and the problem is the cost of living. And even now, my brain, since I started the video, since I've been checking on the highway, my brain goes on that mathematical financial calculation all the time, 24/7, because all these cars are eating money. They're not literally eating money, but in the way they are, because of course now they're consuming gas, which costs more than 75% since February 2020, you know. So that is a big proportion of the cost increase that has sucked the wealth, struck harder the purchasing power of the individual. So I'm just going to go into that a bit after, but first I'm going to finish on the problems of Aspies and the solution. For me, friends with benefits, or pledge your allegiance, our family. Friends with benefits only, pledge your allegiance. That's of course where we got to rock and roll with that, and that's where we drill it for a fact here to be in Cancun, in Commitly, of course, in all the appellations where we are now. To be loving here, the corner where we got the bridges and the public workers putting some concrete, and they're putting some concrete on the floor, and they're doing some of that good work, and you know, they're trying to get some good value done here and rehabilitations. And we got the bridges, and of course we got truckers on the road, we got truckers on the road, and we got the rehabilitation. We got those workers there, and we got some plumbers, and we got some welders, and we got some of that good loving, and we got that drill here and there. And then the problem was also is for Aspies is high dropout rates. I have a high school diploma. I don't remember high school, but supposedly I have some college. I guess I dropped out of college, but I have a high school diploma. But for Aspies and people who are autistic and people with HFA, there's a high, very high dropout rate. The dropout rate is extremely high, super high dropout rates. The dropout rates are super high. The dropout rates are super high dropout rates, extremely elevated compared to the vast majority of the population. It stands at a incredible. Well, I was gonna go more towards the sun there, but it seems like we got enough sunset for today. Just gonna cross the street on the other side and drill it in towards the moon and gaze on that moon. Yeah, I was gonna go further there, but I guess we can turn and drill it in by that side, because I don't want to do more than 4 hours today. Yesterday we did more than 5, and I guess we're gonna balance it with the 4, and the 5 we're gonna add up. But it's quite a beautiful sunset where we got it drilled. Here we're gonna of course cross the street here, probably on the side of the street, and that's what we're gonna get drilling for. And then we're gonna cross it, and we're gonna mark it on the now. And that's some things which we gotta drill here. You never know, sometimes they come fast, you know. So that is some things which we gotta be drilling. So this is a bridge, and of course just like that bridge there, we have to build bridges with a small, medium, extra large bridges. See, that bridge is quite of a beauty, and get the beautiful sunset now. There's always a sunset and a sunrise. I like that red. It's always red in rising, red in setting. So I guess we done made it a little bit on the march, and it's always a beautification of the cities, which I enjoy to see. And the public workers across the 63 put that good work in. And of course, the other problem for us Aspies is the dropout rates. The dropout rates and the high depression and suicidal rates is very high. So the dropout suicidal rates, I've been depressed, I've been suicidal. That was pretty hardcore, you know, being depressed and being suicidal. Being depressed and being suicidal, I was for about 2.5, 3 years, almost 3 years. Almost. A long time, like at least 2 years I was depressed and suicidal. Between 2 and 3 years, and like 2015 until summer 2017. What got me out of depression was crossing Canada, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. That event really got me out of being depressed and being suicidal. That event in 2017, I got the tickets. In August 2017, I went with my anonymous friend. We went all the way to Vancouver, BC. By bus, 3.5 days from Montreal to Vancouver. That was the duration of the trip by bus. 3.5 days. That was wow, you know. We switched buses several times, but that event made me solidify my esprit de corps, my fellow Canadians and North Americans, my brothers and sisters in the 50 states. Is always for the 10, the 50, and the 3 to my fellow Canadians. The king is absent. It's time for the Republic. So in August, I went to BC, British Columbia, to the Pacific, and then of course when we came back in September, we decided to go to Halifax, Nova Scotia by train, 25 hours and 44 minutes. So I got both the train tickets from 2017 and the bus tickets. That's why I say I'm auctioning them for $1 million. $1 million to give half to my friend and buy her house. If I would have been a millionaire, I would have gotten her that house. But I passed a few weeks ago. We didn't pass this week, but maybe next week or the other week for sure, before the month of Scorpio. Gonna try to go before the full moon. And I hope it's still for sale there. Maybe I'm gonna get that millionaire by then and win the lotto. And we has weeping willows, you know. And it's right by the river. She would love it because she wants by the river. And if I would have had money, I would have bought her right away because it's still for sale. I think it's still for sale. In one of my videos, you see as I march by the river, by 2 weeks ago, 2 and 3 weeks ago, and for like 4 times in a row in the past 4 months. You see, 4 weeks in a row, I meant to say 4 weeks. in like my workout, marching workout sessions from like July and August. From like July and August, and even early mid-September. Even early mid-September, you gotta check. You're gonna see what I'm talking about when I pass by the river. You're gonna see the house somewhere between the second and the third hour of my long marching video vlogs, workouts, because you don't see all the time myself busting a little bit of dance move on those toes, with those hips, with that melody, with that tongue, with that hair, with that booty. Gotta insure that booty for $1 trillion, you know. All those squats since I got out of depression, and that was what got me out of depression. Crossing Canada, traversing Canada coast to coast, that made me establish a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians, you know. My family, pledge allegiance, all of my family, and the great Canadians. I got that. Canada, you know. Canada tatted up. I always got that flag. Don't ask me when I got that, because I have some journals. So most of my, isn't that beautiful, eh? Beautiful little garden. Most of my life, prior to 2014, winterish, January-ish, February-ish 2014, what I know is from journals, and I have a high school diploma. So I do have a high school diploma, but I have to do a big cleaning, see if I can find my birth certificate, you know. See if I can find my birth certificate with that, and that's just what it is with the rock and roll, you know. So that is just something which I gotta be mindful of, that I moved to a better place, and from where I used to live, in that Côte de Neige there, and underground, like a small prison cell. It wasn't really a prison cell, but it was like a prison cell, and that is just something which we have, of course, in common to do, and is something which we gotta be mindful of course, to have survived on the mold, to have survived, of course, the COVID, you know. Of course. Wow. So having survived COVID, you know, in mid-February 2020, it was like death, pestilence, and disease. I thought I was gonna die, eh? And I got triple vaxxed, and ever since then, I kind of live with carpe diem, and it's kind of live for today to the fullest, and I dream for tomorrow, you know, dream for tomorrow, better days, and not just for myself, you know, but for others as well. It's something which I have, of course, to meditate upon in those prepositions, of course, of the life-affirming matters, which, of course, we have as individuals. An individual who's different, who has this neurological mental divergent condition, who is different and who has some great things to offer on the table. Especially when it comes to geopolitics, rock and roll, sports and fitness and dancing, having created a workout training program system in 2019. I'm just going to do a little bit of a, before we go into geopolitics, I'm just going to do a little bit of a economic, financial, commercial meditation, because I am myself financially stressed, right? So myself, I live in a financial stress, but I'm just going to do, because we saw how many cars there were circulating, and cars, of course, are circulating now. And now we have a big strike. So, and we've seen strikes like never before, because the cost of living and inflation and shrinkflation double. Some even say stagflation is on the horizon, if not having commenced. But inflation is basically people, citizens, losing purchasing power. So you buy less for the dollar. Basically, that's what inflation means. Without getting too technical academic. Sometimes I know myself as an Aspies, we have that problem too. Sometimes we utilize too much academic, sophisticated verbosities and language that is not really necessary. Bottom line is, fundamentals of inflation is that inflation is taking away from the purchasing power of the dollar, buys less than it bought before. Basically, that is inflation. So what has been happening is, of course, for the past years, since COVID, and even now today, every week it seems to be increasing. But one specific one, if you take a look at the price of gas, for example, price of gas, and tell me for the states, 50 states, all the states variations. Let's say New York, all the 50 states and the other provinces of Canada. But for the island of Montreal, the average price of gas for the island of Montreal, here where I reside, and it's a big metropolis island. It's an island that is like a small country population-wise. It's about 2.5 million people. But the average price of gas was 93 cents. 93 cents in February 2020. February 2020, it was 93 cents. And of course, February 2020, it was 93 cents. Now, last month, for September, I think the average was about 163. It was kind of similar to what it was in August. August was around the same, 161, 162, between 160 and 164 average, right? Because sometimes it's 156, then 159, then 166. It jumps back to 164, 166. It goes up and down. Always between kind of 156 and 167-ish. In these past 4 months and during summer, it was kind of oscillating between those. Every day it's going up and down, and going down and going up, it's 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 going down, 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 up, 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 down, up. So it's like going up and down, right? But the average calculation for, just if you calculate until now, for the year, it's probably around 160, 62 or so. 161, 162. If you compare to what it was, the average of February early 2020, 5 years ago, not 2000, because even then it was way lower, but 2000, just 5 years ago, it was around 93 cents, right? So that is about a increase of about average of 75%. So meaning that for every dollar that you used to put in February 2020, January, February 2020, and late 2019, you have to put 175. So basically you pay more per the same distance, because last time I was discussing it from a technical perspective, and to give a little bit of information, which for more those who are inquire of a mathematical sense, for example, that car, these 4 cars, and all the cars that are following after these 4, all have a constant. The constant is a mathematical number that doesn't change. The constant is they will always consume that amount with slight variation. If it needs an oil change and whatnot, I'm not going to go. Those are very technical, small details for more people who are more proficient with cars. But generally, right? So let's say that car consumes 10 liters per 100 kilometers. That will always be 10 liters per 100 kilometers. And see, I was mentioning the strike. This is what that says. En grève, it's French for strike. On strike, see? Syndicates, see? Syndicates. So they are on strike. Syndicates. Grève, do we have a sign in English? Maybe on the other side, is it in English? This one? Yeah, I believe so. No, that's en grève. Oh yeah, that's en grève, see? They're on strike. They're on strike. So all these signs are on strike. So they are on strike. All of these, that's what that means. Strike, see? Okay, so they're asking, see what's interesting, this one says, made in Quebec. Made in Quebec. That fabriqué au Québec, it says that it's made from recycling. It's made already from recycled material, and this is 100% recyclable, so it's made in Quebec. So it's, that's the French word for strike, en grève. So basically what those signs are, the picket line signs and the strike. The STM strike, the transportation strike. So back to finishing the mathematics of the cars. So the constant is how much their cars are eating per distance, per 100 kilometers, let's say 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 or more, right? So that will always kind of be so similar, right? Similar. Now what is a variable? The variable is a mathematical thing that changes opposed to a constant. So the variable is the price of gas. So the variable could be X. That means that it's plus 75%. So that means that per dollar spent for the same distance, now you have to spend $1.75 instead of $1. So you realize how it adds up, because if it's $10, it's $17.50. If it's $100, it's $75. So 75%, and salaries have stagnated. The salary increase, average salary increase has been about 4.4%. 4.4%. That's not even 5% average for the past 5 years, while the price of gas in the past 5 years has increased by about 75%. So all these cars are eating more, unless they're electric and hybrid. I'm not discussing electric and hybrid here, because the majority of the cars are still running on gasoline, right? They're still running on gasoline. But there are those exceptions, of course, but I'm not going to address those, because they're electric. It's the clean zero pollution energy here, because in Quebec we have hydroelectricity, which of course our electricity from Hydro-Quebec, interesting enough, by Paradise we got 63, right? And of course 63 states. Of course, due to the fact of the relationship which we are engaged to discuss now, the continuance of the discussion vis-a-vis the prices of gas, is the fact remains that it's about 75% more expensive to travel, basically, from point A to point B for the same distance, right? Because it's the price of gas, and it's per distance, it's the constant, it doesn't change, right? It's always going to be for different types of cars, the different types of consumption, but it could be liters or gallons per 100 kilometers or 100 miles, right? We can do the conversion, because it's co-equivalent. It doesn't matter if it's liters, because a gallon is 4 liters, and we can do the conversion from miles to kilometers, because the consumption is the same per the same distance, right? Per unit individual car. But that car, from that car, from that car, from that car, between these 4 cars here, there's a variance. It varies from car. If the car is the same type, then of course it would be the same consumption, because it's the same. So let's say a car, my favorite car is a Cadillac. If I were to drive a Cadillac 1963, would be different, because that's my favorite car. Cadillac from 1963, you know, as in the movie, of course, where we got now to be doing on that. And that's just something where we have, of course, to do. So, of course, the movie is, of course, one of the movies is The Shape of Water. The Shape of Water is, of course, the transversal, okay, where we have now in the situational awareness of being, of course, independent. And, of course, that originality of that car being that it is the translucent, of course, car for the domain is something which we have, of course, to be the generative about in all these appellations, where we got now to discourse all the dynamics and the dynamical aspects of the economical affectations of the individual citizen population, not to get overly intellectual, sophisticated, or academic about it, but generally, of course, the discussion now revolves around the cost of living, and the price of gas is a major contribution to the pressures on the cost of living, because generally citizens will spend more on gas by about 75%. Thus, you can buy less bacon, less cheese, less water, less milk, can go out less, can go out to the movies less. So the price of gas is one of those that I wish I could hear more about in the news. I want to hear some wisdom about it, because I believe my wisdom kind of course, sometimes semi-mathematical, intellectual, but it kind of sums it up just mathematically. From the price has increased in the past 5 years by about 75%, more or less. It could be between, let's say, some, depending, because it varies, but anywhere between, 60, 65 and 80%, ranging around let's say 70, 72, 73, 74, 75 in the past 5 years. Sometimes it's up and down, but around that, average around that for the year, to early 2020 to late 2025. And at one point, gas for like a few months, I remember it was past $2 during COVID. At one point, I remember it was $2.25. At one point, I remember $2.25. I saw it. It was 2022, 2023, or 2021. Between 2021 and 2023, at one point, it was $2.25. I remember that, because I was seeing it at the corner. I said, $2.25. I said, wow, that must be a disaster. Can you imagine if price if the price of gas goes up, there's a war against the OPEC, because OPEC still dominates, of course. Here in Canada, we have the tar sands, but the problem with the tar sands is that it economically is not that feasible, right? Economically, we have gotten better, but it's the problem with is that it affects. Economically, it affects. Economically, it affects. So, because it affects us economically, that's a problem. I mean, because we can't extract it at an efficient cost, and not only the cost, economical cost, but the cost for the environment is too high. But if we would have a magical formula, because supposedly the tar sands in Alberta, they're among the biggest, if not the biggest, barrel oil reserves per barrel. We can get, I think, trillions of barrels, billions, trillions of barrels. I'm not an expert, but what I know is that it is for sure. If we would be able to include the tar sands, that would be, of course, the top. We will be top. We have the most reserves, maybe even the world. Supposedly, even in the off the coast of Venezuela, but I believe there's a dispute there because, you know, by the international water standards, we have 200 kilometers distance from the shores. It's about 200 kilometers set by the international organizations, right? There's voting coming up. With courage for Montreal. That's what I have to check their platforms. I'm not running. Because my call is the dream for a public-private partnership, you know? For a mass public-private partnership. That's where fundamentally my dream is, you know, on this island here where we need some work, some DGA, and see those four. It's rare that I see four there. They're the four where they got to get, of course, on that mayorship, and here we got a little bit of those beautiful flowers, but we also have a lot of work for the environment, eh? So, yeah, the tar sands, you can check it out for yourselves. The tar sands are quite a fascinating reality in Canada because there's just so much. We would totally be North American energy independent if we would be able to extract it ecologically and economically without it. If it would be more ecologically and economically feasible. Oh, what is this? Oh man, this is just damaging here. There's so much trees in front of us, right in front of the eco center, man. Here's the eco center. We have work to do. That's why we need the DGA. Next time I pass by here, I'm thinking I'm gonna get a black bag. What is this, man? Yes, it's paper, man. Paper. This is environmental. This damages the environment, man. This really damages the environment, you know. This really damages the environment. Here we got, you know, flora, fauna right here. You know? I'm gonna take this and put in that. This is like a snake there going. Yes, no, not cool, man. Totally not cool. See? Just gotta recycle this, you know? You just gotta recycle this, man. Gonna do the work for you. All of this has to be recycled. Just don't do that. Here are the middle, you know, all this paper. Right in front of the Eco Center too. That's like a snake. It looked like a snake, eh? This white and black, and I don't know if there's some colors, but just don't leave it, please. I mean, come on, don't leave it there. It's recycle. We got the trees right here, you know. this, because if it starts raining and if it starts being winter, this will damage, this will damage the environment, We have to do our individual part, If we don't do our individual part, then we're not gonna do our individual part, That is just something which we have to do. Our individual part, of course, that is just something which we gotta do with that. For the North American Collective, the DGAC, this is the Eco Center there. And of course they're changing on the 15th of October the winter schedule, which means that's French there. That means that Sunday and Monday they're gonna be closed. But you have them open 5 days. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday from 10 to 8 between 15th of October and 14th of April. And today it's until the 14th of October, still for the next 2 weeks. You can go between 8 in the morning and 8. 16 is actually 6, so from 8 a.m. to 6. So just if you want to drop, your electronics, your batteries, your paint, your little chemicals, paints, electronics, batteries, things of that nature, you call and you make an appointment and you come here at the Eco Center. And the other Eco Centers work with them here, so you see what they take. As you can see yesterday and other days, you see me going to the center where I drop the batteries and I drop the other things. So just for the environment, Mother Nature, Goddess kiss you if you do it. To do properly individually. We have to do our individual, the individual and the collective, The individual and the collective. See 4 big rocks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just don't do it. Don't leave the trash, Don't leave the trash, see? Yeah, I could have a big black bag to put it here, but just don't do it. Just put it in the recycling, please. That's why it requires the individual, The individual and the collective. We have to do it individually and the collective. So back to the mathematics. For the moon. That's the moon. Goddess. Got those kisses by the trillion. So the propositions are, of course, fundamentally that the gas has gone up and thus it sucks from the wealth, right? You can afford more for groceries, less. Correction. You can afford less for groceries, less to go out, less to go to the movies, less to order out, all these things that you used to do more before. 75% increase. So if you still have to go the same distance, if you work like you used to work with the same distance where you had to drive, and if you didn't, you still average the same. But nonetheless, regardless, for every dollar, basically what individual drivers would need to do is reduce their driving, but by a lot, right? Because 75% is a lot. Maybe you reduced it by a quarter, half, right? I doubt it by 75%. That's a lot, unless you change jobs and you gave up on your car and you took public transit. That could be an affectation. So we have big problems, and I was warning for about 3.5 years ago, as I was warning about in October 2019. It's going to be 6 years soon since I had concluded that humanity is against it towards an international conflagration. We're going to discuss it. If you don't know that what I'm referring about, when we're going to get into geopolitics, we're going to discuss that. So now I'm just going to go into economics a little bit more, because it's super important, of course, in the levels of the propositions, of course, of the endeavors, where we are ourselves to discuss economics and finance in these matters that we are here together, and that we need, of course, to work together on solutions, of which my DRT, I believe, is the solution. Not that it's the only one, but it is definitely a solution which needs to be considered. I'm going to be careful because sometimes they don't stop. Make sure they slow down and turn their heads left or right, and we got the velocity to take into account, and just cross the street prudently, because you never know. Brakes malfunction, citizen driver presses the accelerator instead of the brake, and You have to get down rock and roll, saluting the truckers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, the nurses, daycare workers, truckers. We're gonna cross this bridge and we're gonna build bridges together, small bridges, medium-sized bridges, large bridges, extra large bridges, one of those four, because I have a lot of things to put on the table and not just trillions of kisses and trillions of marching steps and trillions of rock and roll lyrics and trillions of hugs, tickles with it, but that good geopolitics. And I'm a great geopolitical theoretical theorist who knows a little bit of math, and fundamentally all those cars that we're gonna see there in the back as we check out that moon in the back. Look at the beautiful moon in the background. Gotta sing that rock and roll. Hey, the truckers on the road, priestess and a goddess. I was the priestess, Pythia, who orated the great Rethria. To Lycurgus in a past life, I was the priestess, Pythia, who orated the great Rethria. To Lycurgus in a past life, we're gonna let that main out. Let a little bit of that priestess, HNNH. I was gonna sing that good rock and roll. That's the moon getting all those cars there on the highway. All those cars there, they're now consuming or spending 75% more average, unless they're hybrid or electric. They're all spending more, about 75% average, more than they used to spend. And today for me, it is a no spend money day. No spend money Thursday. People, come on. What is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm not gonna. Public workers are gonna come here. Just please, I don't mind you drinking, having fun, waiting for 444, and I just want to see. I don't have an OnlyFans. I know about Uzbekistan was part of the Soviet Union. I also know there's the 5 stans: Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan. So it's not part of the Soviet Union. They fought with the Soviets, but it's Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Kazakhstan. Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan. So it's Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Azerbaijan as well. Azerbaijan, right? That's also a stand, one of the stands. Azerbaijan. 5 stands, which were part of the Soviet Union. So that I know. OnlyFans, and my tiny little clit sometimes goes rocket high, skyrocket, and got a little scar. I get itches sometimes, but God is blessed. Sometimes goes that rocket, But OnlyFans, who owns OnlyFans? I stopped watching porn. I think it's gonna be 4 years soon. So I don't morally object. So I don't morally object to making the production of pornography if they're 18 and plus and XYZ. I'm androgynous, pansexual. You wanna be friends with benefits with me. If you're black, you're white. You're black, you're white, you're rainbow. You gotta be 18 plus though. You're black, you're white, you're rainbow. You're black, you're white, you're rainbow. Then we drill it. You're black, you're white, you're rainbow. Then 18 plus. We can do that good loving without the OnlyFans. Who owns it? Who makes it? I don't know. I know a little bit about it. It's just my main thing is rock and roll, geopolitics, and sports and fitness. It's just whatever the case may be, I guess. But for some, it can help them, I guess, with their sexual health. I'm not sexually frustrated. If I would be, I would discuss it. I have a healthy masturbation. I masturbated today earlier in the morning. I have a healthy masturbation. And I am androgynous, pansexual. I've been in the open for as far as I can remember, and as far as my memory prior to 2014. January, February, that is something which you don't know a little bit of that rock and roll January, February, but it is always something which you gotta take into consideration, for January, February to be. And if you people have millionaires, billionaires making millions and billions out of OnlyFans, and support the DJ Dancing Goddess Army, and go hoodie up Incanitos. Athletes, owners though, hey, the owners are billionaires though. NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB, and I guess we more put on the millions and millions and millions of the fans that OnlyFans or whatever athletes make, but fundamentally it's a billion has 1,000 million, so you gotta keep that in mind. The owners of the NHL, NFL, NBA, MLB, please reduce the cost of the tickets by 44.9% and give some tickets to the public workers, those who pick up the garbage, the compost. You know, they're also athletes. The public workers are the 63 every week. They pick up the garbage, and they're also athletic. They're also athletes in their own way. Hey, the public workers who do the public works, although they paid by the hour, they paid a fraction of what's the athletes in the NFL, National Football League, NHL, National Hockey League, NBA, National Basketball Association, MLB make, and then the owners or the teams are even furthermore. Money is to buy, sell. I also am a KISS trillionaire. My ideas, theories are also worth trillions and billions, especially my geopolitical theories in their own way. But for a private partnership, I don't make pretense that I'm totally selfless and totally selfish. I am trying to be in the balance, you know. Financially now I'm stressed, that's my only stress, and we're gonna discuss a little bit of economics, and we're gonna go into geopolitics fundamentally. It's just that I really gotta go because otherwise I'm gonna pee on me. I gotta say, that is some talent. Like the red eye, and somebody wrote here, the sun, and Arizona, 163, and I like the red here, but the other one's kind of scribbly. I guess if you got talent, do it, but R-A-W with a smiley face. Oh, it says the word. Okay. If you have some talent, you know I am for some like this one is very talented. That one, hey, look. Really talented, hey? That's detail and that's art. So you can do that do it all over, you know. That would be something which I would say, yeah, that's worth it. And some people are just talented like that, you know. But the other ones are scribbling more, like just scribbling and illegible type of graffiti. But that one's really nice with the face there, the detail, kind of cool. So I am for, you know, if somebody has talent, I think we should let them do and encourage even, you know, graffiti art, like really art. Even do like this one, see? This one I kind of find it cool. See? I could build a little bit. See, got some talent there, you know? Got some talent. Say, hey, not bad. If you got some talent like that, I always say, welcome to my city, we got plenty of graffitis. Montreal, the island of the haka. You know, the click and clack. Even how this is written here, it's kind of nice. I can read that one. This one also kind of like, it's like Santo. This one you can read, right? But the stars and all that are pretty well made. And these letters I kind of like how they're made. So if you got really art, that's more art for me. But just the scribbling, you know, like kind of like that one. That's WTF, man. But anyway, so back to the geopolitical. Before we get into the geopolitical discussion, we're going to calculate a bit of the cost of living. So of course the cost of living has increased. Prices of bacon, cheese, eggs, butter, they're going up, you know. Eggs, butter, cheese, they're going up. Eggs, cheese, milk, bread, butter, egg, cheese, milk, bread, cheese, milk, eggs, butter, eggs, prices of eggs, price of butter, price of cheese, price of bacon, price of a lot of edibles, eh? I'm just saying mostly because eggs, it's something that's been increased a lot. Milk, even the milk I used to buy was $1 increased about 4 weeks ago. By $1, we used to be $7.79. Now it's $1.10. It's $8.89. That same milk I used to buy for $7.79. Now it's $8.89 at that same place. So it's increased $1.10. But that is about 16%. In percentages, more than 10% increase. While the salaries have not increased by that much even in the past 5 years. So that's what you got to keep in mind. And then we got stagflation. There, a lot of products have been reduced. There's been a reduction in how much you get. You can even see sometimes it's marked. It used to be, for example, some were 950 grams, such as coffee. Now it's 925, or it used to be 675 the pack, 675 grams, and now it's kind of reduced to 625. Or others, they reduced it, from 100 grams to 75 grams, or from 500 grams to 450, or from 6 to 550. Shrinkflation. You can notice. I notice on a lot of products myself, the shrinkflation effect. How they trimmed it down. They basically trimmed it down, but that's just for one item, eh? Then that means that for the whole, that's kilos and kilos, and it adds up to kilos and tons. So that means it's at the macro level, right? At the individual level, you say 25 grams. Yeah, but 25 grams times 10, that means that is a whole lot. It's a whole buck, It's a whole buck. So that means that's 25 times 10. That's 250. So that 250 adds up. So that would add up to a certain percentage, So that's the percentage which is going to add up to is about 10 times 20, 25 is 250. 250, 250. And that is something what we have to do. So that is the moon there, That is the moon, eh? So that is getting really lightened up to be more and more, of course, more lit. More lit, and of course that is something which I'm gonna check in a few days. Gotta check when the full moon is. Full moon is probably in 7 days. Gotta get somebody there for the truck. I wonder what is that carrying? Maybe some milk? No, not that milk. That one's not carrying milk. Don't think that's milk for sure. Maybe some grains, maybe some cement, maybe some construction material, maybe some other things. So all these cars now are eating gas. See? They're eating gas. They're eating gas. They're eating gas. They're all, if they're not hybrid or electric, they're all spending 75% more about. So they're all, for the dollar that they spend before and in February 2020, they now have to spend $1.75. So all of them, if they gas in Montreal, well, even outside, because the price generally went up, even in the United States, we have to check. The average price in the United States across the 50 states, there is a variation, as it is in Alberta and Canada. We have variations, regional variations across North American regional oil price variations, and we're still pretty much, all oil prices are pretty much tied to OPEC, the oil Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. It stands for Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. It's been kind of a monopoly for 50 years now, more than 50 years, since the 60s, 70s. Maybe not the 60s, but at least since the early 70s, OPEC. I wonder what year. I think, got to double check, but I think OPEC was founded in 1961 initially, and then it expanded. Other countries were added, but it's maybe even predating. Gotta check OPEC, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. I know for sure that in the 70s they established like a cartel monopoly, and even of course there was a financial crisis caused by the monopoly, which of course there was some pressure from the United States in the 70s to lower the prices, because there was a gas inflation, and the prices went up, and there was a big economic problem across the West, the NATO member countries, the West, of course. That is, of course, the problematics which we have, of course, to be now, of course, all the dynamics where we are involved with, and of course all the calculations that are proceeding from my brain now, of course, and the process is ongoing. I'm kind of looking east to my right, to my left, and kind of calculating the financial stress that is added burden on these fellow citizens or non-citizens. It could be whatever. It could be citizens or none, but it doesn't matter. We gotta extend the same courtesy and invitation to our coming imperial democratic republic, as the king is absent. It's time for the republic of the 63 in perpetual union. Let it rise or let it be. And of course, all that information and awareness for now where we are in the island of Montreal, the island of the Hawk. That is something which we have, of course, to take into consideration. Myself, I don't drive. I drive these boots, but of course to be in a way solidarity and to try to make an assessment as a citizen assessment of the financial realities that we're facing now. It is this the month of October began. It's the 2nd of October today. It's the moon's getting full. And that I do gonna switch from finance to geopolitics. But regardless, I also want to say that if I do go into geopolitics, that the PBO, the PBO stands for Parliamentary Budget Officer. The Parliamentary Budget Officer just discussed last week that we're on a precipice, Canada, and that we're done if we don't change, because of the deficit has increased by more than, this fiscal year, the deficit is more than 16 billion. A billion has 9 zeros. 1 billion is 1,000 million. So that's 16,000 million more. I think it's the number is 16.7. So that's 16 billion point 7. 16,700 million deficit. Right? I believe that's about, in percentage, it's about the calculation. Is it 25%? 25%? Something like that. 25%, a quarter, estimated increase in the deficit from 51 billion, 51.3, I believe, 51.3 to 67.9. So that's 16.6, 16.7. Got to double check on the numbers, but it's in the billions. More than 16 billion increase. But that's like in percentage, it's like 25%. Or more than 20%, between 20 and 25% in percentages. So that's more than one fifth, between 1/5 and 1/4, between 20 and 25% deficit, plus what's going on economically internally to cut in the budget. If you check in my past videos, I was asking Trudeau, I was asking Connie about since 3 years ago, on my marches to the mountain, what are we gonna cut? So are we gonna cut the prisons, the police service, the border services? Over there, they're starting to cut in the public sector, mass cuts in the public sector. Because it's the interest, fundamentally. The interest, right? Is the interest. Just like on credit cards. Just like the price of gas, 75% more. It sucks more from the wallets, from the purchasing power of the individual. And that's why my dream is a public-private partnership to implement the DRT, the debt refusion theory. There's no way but the DRT, the debt refusion theory, right? So we have to fundamentally restructure for us to have the DRT from Hawk Island, Montreal, maybe even save the world from financial Armageddon. Because we are on the verge, if it's not going to commence, of a public financial collapse. So all these strategies which we got to implement, see, they survived the beautiful spiders. That's a spider there, see? Beautiful spiders here. And we got to build bridges, because I have a lot to offer on the table. So we're going to have to build small bridges, medium-sized bridges, large bridges, extra large. Just like we're gonna rebuild these bridges here, because we got a lot of work in the public to do as well as the private. It's always a PPP with me, always a public-private partnership, always for the 63 for world peace as well. But I'm a North American. Even that I haven't left the island of Montreal. I think it's been. I'm not. I think I didn't leave the island of Montreal last time. It was before COVID for sure, 6 years, even 7 or 8 years ago maybe. No, I left, I think last time I went out of the island was more than 6 years, 7 years ago. 7 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And then before that, so I haven't even left the island for more than 6 years, even close to 7 years. I was thinking that last time I left the island was when I crossed Canada coast to coast, which was a great event in my life, and that was 2017, but that would mean more than 8 years. But what's for sure is that it's been more than 6 years since I haven't even left the island of Montreal here, my island, which is a big metropolis city of 2.5 million people. So even myself left in years and years and years and years, just the island of Montreal, island of the So as I am of course advocating for the DRT to implement mass tourism projects for the rehabilitation, rejuvenation of the youth, of course, to be in the situation where we are now, to be loving, and of course to implement my debt refusion theory concordantly, right? So now all these cars are eating money. They're consuming gas, and the gas cost more than about average 75%. More than 75%. All of them, right? All of them. So all of them are eating money. 75% more costs for the same distance above, you know? Above same distance. About the same distance. So you see there's hundreds and hundreds of cars now. Imagine that all cars, mostly if they're not electric or hybrid, most of these cars are probably built, even if they're not built before 2020 and they're built in the past 5 years between February 2020 and this year, on the market, put on the market fresh out of the assembly line and the production line. How's that Ford assembly line going? Of course that's just a model, but for Model T, but pretty much the standards apply for many, but it could be all sorts of cars, right? But they still, most of them, more than 90%, right, are still running on gas. We have to do, how much percentage are still running on gas? I'm assuming more than 90. You see this? That's why I took it from there to save Mother Earth. This has to go into recycling. That's recycling and that's garbage. So, oh, now we're facing the moon exactly. That's a good omen. Right straight for the moon before I go into the geopolitics. So, finalizing on that, leave the bags at the door again. We're going to enter geopolitics and, of course, geopolitics. So that is the reality. All these cars and all cars, and just this is one segment of the highways of Montreal, which is one segment here, that they're all eating gas. They're eating gas. They're consuming money. They're eating money in a way. All of these cars, they're eating money. A few cents. Continuously, right? Until they reach the distance, the destination. They stop the engine until the engine stops running. So they're average about consuming or spending monetarily, converted from the gas consumption into money spending, dollars, Canadian dollars in the case because we're in Montreal, Hawk Island, about 75% more than during, on and before February 2020, 5 years ago. Soon to be 6 in 4 months. Right? October, 2nd of October. So October, November, December, January, more than 4 months. Think about that. So the PBO has warned just last week, hey, 2 bunnies, look. See? Whoop, it's going hop. See, there's a bunny there. Bunny. We have bunnies here, we have rabbits. They were just so cute. Just aligned. So cute, just aligned one to the other. We have a lot of rabbits here as we have on the mountains. Bunnies, eh? They survive here in the wilderness because it's like a small forest here. Here's like a small forest, and here's where I take elderberry juice, right? I did 4 bottles this year. Next year I'm going to try to do 11 because a lot of it went to waste. There's so much elderberry juice, and next year I'm going to try to do 44 bottles, but I have to start early June. Early to mid-June till end of July. So late spring, when you hear the sirens of the police or the sirens of the firefighters such as those, you got to slow down. The life is more important than money. You slow down and you do the Imperial Integrated Citizen Security Protocol. You turn 180 to the left, 180 to the right. If you're driving with your head, 180 with the head left and right to make sure everything's secure. It's my full circle citizen integrated security protocol. My full circle citizen integrated security protocol. I call on all citizens and to distribute pamphlets for citizens to be distributing pamphlets for citizens to be aware that we have, of course, to do it. So, of course, to do the distribution and to do the 180 and of course the other 180. So of course that is the simultaneous preposition where we have of course to do it ourselves, and that's just what we have to do, you know, to do the 180 to the left, 180 to the right, 180 to the left, 180 to the right. That's a full circle. That's 360 degrees. When you hear the sirens, when you hear the firefighters, the ambulances, sirens of the firefighters, the ambulance, and my brothers and sisters, boys and girls in blue, security forces, police, and nobody's perfect. As I sing that rock and roll for the boys and girls in blue and the firefighters and ambulance drivers, I also sing that rock and roll for my brothers and sisters who do their criminal rehabilitation. Criminal rehabilitation. Your criminal rehabilitation, because most people deserve second, third, and fourth chances, and we need you to build the 44 mass underground tunnel structures in case of a thermonuclear war. And more and more fentanyl, I'm declaring it as a bioweapon. Now, back to the PBO, Parliamentary Budget Officer, just last week declared that we're on the precipice. That declaration was because our deficit this year is going to go up between more than 20%, I think even close, if not more than 25%. It's about 16.6 billion. A billion that's 16,000 million deficit. A billion is 9 zeros. That's a lot. That's going to have to be cut from the public services. You realize the consequences, right? And of course, because the trade war affects us, the United States, that's problems added up. So I've been warning about this for more than 3.5 years now, I believe. You can check my videos, because I foresaw that due to the programs of assistance implemented during COVID, that's gonna affect us very principiate wise, and is gonna be of course the problem for us, of course, to continue to have the public services which we have, and we're gonna have to cut and reduce massively. And what are we gonna cut, Connie? Quadrupling the military. I think that's disconnected, man. The king is absent. Quadrupling the military budget. We're on the verge of an economic financial collapse, Uncle Connie. It's time for the Republic, you know, and we gotta take them to see coast to coast, ocean to ocean, across the 63 to see what they're fighting for, you know. I want them to see what they're fighting for here. It's not all about the money, eh? If you wanna go for money, then you go join Mercs. You go join Mercs. Mercenaries, not armies of NATO, baby. It's not what we're playing about, Dragon Army, public-private partnership. So that's the rock and roll, and that's the Esprit de Corps, and that's the warning of the PBO, Parliamentary Budget Officer, which has warned that is unsustainable, that we're done, basically. Harsh language, and it's a problematic. My DRT best. So now I'm going to go into geopolitics, leave the exit the door. In many ways, due to having discussed economic matters, we are kind of touching on geopolitical matters, but of course we're going to now focus on strictly merely geopolitical matters as a whole, which incorporate and integrate economic, financial, commercial, trade ones as well. Back in 2019, October 17th to be specific, I posted my first video of a long series, whence I have conversed the coming of a World War III, an international conflagration. You heard that correct? I have proof. I have the videos. I even posted the small clips. October 2019, I have predicted that there's going to be an international conflagration. An international conflagration. 2019. Right? 2019. 2019. That was my prediction. I had predicted that. So that was the prediction in 2019, that there's going to be an international conflagration, And so made, created, and produced that workout training program system designed to go hand in hand with such a scenario. Such as I said, aforementioned scenario, World War III scenario, which of course has been occurring in a general manner to my prediction, which dates from 2019. And I also created, made, and produced a workout training program system called officially the General War Integrated Total Body Training System, aka the 300 workout, aka the Dragonomy workout, which is an efficient, effective workout training program system which requires no equipment. It's not necessarily that it is simple or easy, but it is not meant to increase aesthetics or muscle aesthetics. It is made to increase general overall fitness, and I made it to go hand in hand with the World War III scenario. I have been for years now advocating to be incorporated across all high schools, all security services, police forces, RCMP, FBI, NATO, Interpol, and NATO member countries. For the North Atlantic Treaty Organization country, for Canadian Armed Forces, of course, part of the standard of the Dragonomy workout training program system. Part of Dragonomy workout training program system. Part of the Dragonomy workout training program system. Saluting the train conductors. What I know is that this train is going west. I see that it is a cargo train, and I meditate on a geopolitical perspective, how now we are open to potential sabotage and espionage because of DMAA, Direct Military Assistance in Action, which we're going to discuss, because there is the consequence of DMAA, Direct Military Assistance in Action, and that consequences has potentially created strong adversaries for our continuing present and past assistance in action. In this context of the DMA, I'm referring to Canadian and NATO member countries, and NATO was a collective security defense force and its action or assistance, which only in military terms, military assistance and action, nothing to do with providing food and sanitation pads and baby powder and hygiene products and anything to do with humanitarian aid, only strictly military aid and assistance. I'm going to discuss the DMA in a bit, but just of course to finalize that, my workout training program system, I perform myself more than 372 sessions of my own creative workout training program system. And of course, that is what I created back in 2019 with design made to go hand in hand with such a scenario as the aforementioned, the workout training program system. Once it was done, of course, once we got to correlate on the implementation thereof, where we got now to be, of course, all the domain and all the plurality of where we are now. You see, of course, this train consequently going west. It's heading west. So now I see that, of course, I already counted about more than 44 cargo. It probably has grain, wheat, maybe barley, sugar, maybe corn, rutabagas, potatoes, things of that nature. It is, of course, a cargo plane. I don't know exactly what it's carrying, but I know it's probably carrying vital, if it is carrying something. But I don't know everything that's coming in and out, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, across the 63. And for the first time, since ever in 2023, our Canadian Pacific and Kansas City rail merged to form one railway corporation company that can even go up to Mexico. I think it's maybe the biggest ever railway company merger in history. CPKC, Canadian Pacific, Kansas City. CPKC merged in 2023 during COVID. I think it's been 2 years and some months ago. And of course, there's a lot of there's not that many locomotives, but there's a lot of cargo in this one. You can see so long. It's going west, and it's carrying vital, probably carrying some of that vital goods that is super important for the North American collective civilizational complex, for our continuing survival, our continuing operation, Maybe it's going all the way to Ottawa, Toronto, all the way to Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, down to the prairies, and can only meditate, speculate thereof, because there's a lack of information. The information I know that it's a long train. Wagons, cargo wagons, big cargo wagons going west. So I predicted what's happening now in a general manner, not in an overall detailed manner. I predicted that there's going to be an international conflagration in 2019. My workout, I performed about 372 sessions of my own creative workout training program system. I have hundreds of videos of me working out, training, exercising, hundreds of videos of me working out, training, exercising, and doing my workout training program system thereof. Hundreds of them, more than 372, and it is a workout training program system which of course is effective, simple, and efficient. It requires no equipment, and of course that workout training program system is, the rules are this. So these are the four main rules, and one is allocated 93 minutes 44 seconds and 9/11ths of a second, so almost 45 seconds. The 9/11th of a second is symbolic for 9/11 attacks, which is the one and only time that NATO in its security history as an alliance, as a collective defense security alliance founded in 1949, that it was the only time that, of course, it was invoked. Article 5, which is when one NATO member country is attacked, all NATO member countries are attacked and must come to one's aid and support. Only once it was invoked. On USA's behalf, paradoxically, on 9/11. On 9/11. Only once. Right? So these are the rules. One is allocated 93 minutes, 44 seconds, a 9/11th of a second, you know? A 9/11th of a second. 9/11ths of a second. So those are the minutes, the total time allocated. But once you start the countdown, you cannot stop. You cannot stop. You got to keep it in motion by marching, running, jogging, marching fast pace, walking fast pace, etc. Once the 90, so that's the countdown. Once you start it, you got to keep it in motion, and you can do 13 max reps per set and 3 minimum, and you have to do 100 of the trinity of exercises. So 100 push-ups you got to do, 100 squats, and 100 hawks within that time period. So it incorporates the cardio, right? So 13 reps max per set, 3 minimum. You can do more, but you're only gonna write 13 for the count until you get to 100. 100 push-ups, 100 hawks, 100 squats. If you're interested, you can see hundreds of my own workout video, of course, which I've, of course, myself put and performed on YouTube. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of my own creative workout training program system, which I've done. 100, of course, which, of course, is the number. 100 push-ups, 100 squats, 100 push-ups, 100 squats, 100 hawks. 13 reps, maximum, 3 minimum. 13 reps, maximum, 13 minimum. 13 reps, maximum, 13 minimum. Correction. 13 max per repetition, 3 minimum. So 13 and 3, the numbers go together, 13 and 3. You can do 13 max and 3 minimum. You can play around. You can do 13, 6, 5, 9 until you get to 100 for 100 push-ups, 100 squats, 100 hawks. Right? I average about an hour to do them. Anywhere between 44 minutes and 88 minutes. Between 44 minutes and 88 minutes. Anywhere between 44 minutes and 88 minutes. So I average around that, you know. I average around that. That is around the average that I average about. Between 44 and 88. 44 and 88. That is the average that I average about. Between 44 minutes and 88. I mean, the lowest is about 44 minutes. The lowest at 44 minutes and 53 seconds, almost 45 minutes, and the highest was about 88 minutes. But the average is around an hour. So my average is around an hour, but the extremes are 44 minutes and 53 seconds. The lowest, wow, it's still going. It's a long one, so many wagons. Oh my goodness. Definitely more than 156, definitely more than 44. Now it's like 300, man. Wagons, so long. So long, one of the longest I ever seen. It's still going, and I'm marching in the opposite direction, eh? So, what a long one, L-O-N-G. You can see like a big snakes with satellites, you know. So that's the workout, General Integrated Total Body Training System, officially titled, or aka 300 workout, 8K Dragon Army workout. And you know, it is the year of darkness in 2029 November, when I'm also an N.A.C.W.P. I design, build supercomputers, satellites, microchips, gadgets, and with NATO in that parallel timeline, Israel and Mexico are part of NATO, and I build super satellites for total SSD, as I've been, of course, advocating for the implementation of my theories for total S, total security, total defense, citizen integration theory, and other theories, of course, to be integrated in appellative thereof. And of course, that is the constituency where we have now to be in all the situational awareness and all the propositions where we are now. That, of course, with all the LOV and all the rock and roll, that is something which we gotta be. Saluting the train conductors, LOV, train conductors. I wonder how many years on the job, the train conductors, and although I was moody, you know, it's not all about me. It's not all about us, the Dragon Army. It's about the train conductors, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the truckers, the workers of the past 20th century who built this privilege of civilization, these big highways. We take some things for granted, the electricity, the highways, and all the systems you see sometimes with COVID or with other incidents, how vulnerable we can be. And sometimes we can be very vulnerable, and you know, we can be very vulnerable. We think we don't have weaknesses or whatever, but hey, love you, whoever you are in that car. Somebody make some loving. We got a secure coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and play defense, SSD, security service and defense for the 63 coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and throughout the NATO collective, as a merely security service and defense are my initiatives, protocols, ever since I predicted what's happening now back in 2019. And my Trinity or theory is best at this point in time. It's time for the Republic. The king is absent. It's time for the Republic. And before October 7th, 2023, what Israel calls as 9/11, I was advocating simultaneously for Israel and Mexico to join NATO. I was advocating, of course, simultaneously for Israel and Mexico to join NATO before October 7, 2023. Before October 7, 2023, because of course technically a country which is at war cannot really join NATO. But before October 7, 2023, I was advocating for Israel and Mexico simultaneously to join NATO in what I call the Genesis protocol, NATO Genesis 33 protocols. I have a series, I think it's a 4-part lecture series. Of course, you know. I think it's a 4-part lecture series where I discuss the implementation thereof, a 4-part lecture. I discuss Genesis, the reference to the Bible, the twins, the warriors and twins, and kind of reconcile and make an alliance and kiss and hug there in the Bible, the Torah. So with today's realities, but I guess since we have a semi-mystical component to our spiritual mythological Western civilization, although what I call the North American Collective, remember that we're a new emergent civilizational collective or civilizational complex, which is not totally divorced but is distinct from Western civilization. So we're not totally divorced, but we are distinct from Western civilization. So in those matters that we are not totally divorced, but we are distinct from Western civilization, we have, of course, to appellate and integrate, and of course, in all the domains where we got now, to be protruding with all the civilizational aspects where we are now, that we are to be incorporating the DRT, the debt refusion theory, for the creation of the UE, of course, the universal exchange rate, and that is, of course, the appellative, of course, where we got now to be in the domain of the sphere of this NATO complex, and the Canadian domain is the public-private partnership, which we need to proceed with a mass public-private partnership thereof, and especially my DRT, debt refusion theory, and the CIT, citizen integration theory, and the DFT. So I predicted what's happening now geopolitically worldwide, a global international conflagration, aka World War III. However, what I did not predict, of course, is the current relations with the United States, the deterioration of relations with the United States. I did not predict. So that was, of course, not of my prediction, of course, where I did not, that I have now to take into account that the deterioration of relations with the United States has and is occurring now. Right? Because, you know, what I'm going to say now, you only can say yes to. You cannot say no. You cannot even object or negotiate with this following statement. It is a geopolitical realistic statement. It is a reality. And it is just like it's a constant. And it's just like the symbol pi. The symbol, not the pie, edible pie, cheese pie, or bacon pie, or apple pie, or blackberry pie, or any other chocolate pie, or any other pie that you can eat, edible pie. The pi symbol, which is the numerical constant 3.1415, which is the reflective relation with the circumference of the circle. The relation between the diameter and the circumference of the circle is the pi symbol. It's a two-headed N. It's like an N. The letter N for Normandy, natural, neurodivergent, neurotypical, neuron, neutron. The letter N has like two heads, two faces, and that's why our coming fusion of Canada and United States will be the Imperial Democratic Republic, which is going to be two-headed, two-faced, one benevolent, goodness and kindness for the deserving, and one, of course, is going to be punishing justice, more stern, severe for the deserving of the other head, or two heads, you know. That's why our coming empire here from the Hokkaido will be two-headed, two-faced. So that is, of course, going to be that relationship thereof. So that is the protrudent appellation and the protrudent relation thereof, right? So that is, of course, what we're going to have to do. So that is, of course, just the situational awareness, of course, of where we have the dictums, and, of course, the implementation where we got now. So, of course, that implementation what we have now to be salutive about is the solutions which we have to focus on. So the DRT is part of the solution, the Detroit Fusion Theory, along with the CIT, Citizen Integration Theory, and the DFT, the Democratic Fusion Theory. So consequently, that you have to say yes to this following statement, because it's like the pi symbol, which is always a constant. It always represents 3.14 as the numerical relation between the diameter and the circumference of the circle. The pi symbol, right? It's the constant. For us, Canadians, whether on the left, in the right, in the center, and vice versa, reciprocally for my brothers and sisters in the United States, your number one interest when it comes to foreign affairs, right? Not domestic internal affairs. When it comes to, as a hierarchy, who's number one top priority to establish good, cordial, the best economic, social, financial, military, defense, social, cultural, sports relations with? It is with us, Canada. And Canada, it is with the United States. You know, Canada is with the United States, you know. And Canada is with the United States. So that is just the reality. You cannot say no. Or you cannot even say maybe. It's yes. Reciprocally. Because of our, at least since the past 75 years when the British Empire started losing its power, the dissolution of the British Empire, it's a geopolitical reality which makes it so, because before British Empire had more power, it could have defended Canada in different ways, but less and less as the decades passed at the end of the Second World War and their dissolution of their empire in the late 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, right? Although my uncle Connie still pledged allegiance to the King of England and his heirs. Right, think about that. We should have been a Republican on the 1st of January 2000. When the turn of the millennium, 31st of December, the turn 1999 towards the year 2000, we should have been, of course, a republic already. We should have already been a republic, right? We should have already been a republic on the 1st of January, you know? So that is, of course, just the situation. That is just, of course, the situation. So that, of course, situation, which we have, of course, to, of course, represent ourselves in the points that we are now to be representative about, that has to be the reality in consequence to all the domains where we have now to be fluent in geopolitics, that it is so. You cannot negotiate with that. You cannot negotiate. You cannot say no. You have to say yes. You have to say yes. You cannot say no. You cannot object to it. It is a reality, and also because of the geographical position. Because to the Atlantic, we got the Atlantic to the east and the Pacific to the west. So we got the Pacific to the west, we got the Atlantic to the east. To the west, we got the Pacific, to the east, we got the Atlantic. And of course, that is just the consequential appellation of where we are now. In the terms that you have to accord this with a yes, and my brothers and sisters in the United States also, as the number one priority when it comes to geopolitics, it must be as a hierarchical, if we are to establish a hierarchical priority with whom Canada has to establish the best relations with another sovereign country, and vice versa, the United States vis-a-vis another sovereign country. Although you have a border with Mexico, it is with Canada, and Canada is with the United States. So we must jointly have both. We have as the number one priority, if we are to establish a hierarchy of countries with whom we have to establish the best diplomatic, mutual defense, security, finance, business relations with, it's the United States. And us is with the United States, because 75% of our goods go to the United States. Right? So that is just the reality. That is just it is so. You cannot argue with that. That is a constant. Right? Just like for years and years and years and years with me, you see my constant, although I died during COVID, I changed, and I have the routine because I have this Asperger's, so my neurological condition and HFA, ASP, I have the routines where I work out, train, exercise, march, and do geopolitics meditation. When I go back home, I'm going to do hours and hours of analyzing news, analyzing geopolitical events from Morocco, what's going on with the Gen Z in Morocco, outside the world, but mainly for North America, for the North American Collectif, Canada, United States, Canada, principally, first and foremost, as I am for world peace, but I am a North American. Fundamentally, I'm not on the ground with 300 men and women in Ukraine and Israel, in Taiwan, anywhere else, right? Fundamentally, it's for the 63. My ideas, theories, protocols for the 63, first and foremost, for NATO thereafter, and then third for world peace, and fourth dimension to colonize Mars with Bill Gates, my brother Scorpio Bill Gates, and Elon Musk, and blah, 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 blah. In a parallel life, I'm a hybrid as those. I also have Asperger's in that parallel life, but nonetheless, see, it's still here. The train is up to here. Wow. So it went, oh my goodness, the goddess, God, it's always God bless and goddess kiss. And maybe I was saved by the goddess, been depressed, been suicidal, I survived a surprise attack to help somebody else and save the world maybe from financial Armageddon, and at least the North American Collectif by constructing those 44 mass city tunnels across North America in case of a thermonuclear war, and get into the Golden Dome, the Golden Hawk, Golden Hawk Dome, and see how big, how long it is. It's up to here, believe it or not. It just went west, and it's even going furthermore down there, the train. Such a massive train, unbelievably massive. Hey, all the logistics, all this is a privilege of civilization. That was my thesis. I put it online, and predates that February 2023, so in a few months it's going to be 3 years. It's going to be 3 years soon. In 2023 I believe it predates that. One of the first videos, a series, so I do sometimes series of Coffee with Dragon, discussing my philosophies and theories and protocols, and of course the privilege of civilization, having lights, having electricity, having sanitation, running water, all that is really a big privilege if you think about it. Who built it in the 20th century? The highways, the bridges, the trains, the railways, the trucks. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of trucks now with milk, with bread, with butter, with cheese, with bacon, with romaine lettuce, with corn, with chips, with food items, with drinkable items, food items, and consumable items which we need to eat. Everybody gotta eat, even Wall Street, food security. And then we also have, of course, the clothing and other hygienic products, the soap, the shampoo, baby formula, tampons. We have, of course, diapers, the daycare workers changing diapers. Always gotta sing some rock and roll for them. The train conductors, the truckers, as we are gonna just stretch a bit left or right before you go to hydrate on the water there. But it's amazing how big this train is. It's just long, the length of it. Probably hundreds of wagons, train wagons. Not the horse wagons, but wagons, and some probably carry. I wonder if they're all filled, or how much is it filled to capacity. Maybe 90%, maybe 44%, maybe 40%, maybe 88%, maybe 61%, maybe 2/3, maybe 4/5, 6/8, 9/10, 7/10, 7/11. Gonna go fraction and percentages. Fractions and percentages. So now that I made that statement, and that we have to establish the best, most cordial economic, social, financial with the United States, that leaves for me to say that although I predicted an international conflagration back in 2019, what I did not predict was the deterioration of relations with the United States, right? With the United States. So that I also have to take into account, I also have to take into account. I also have to account for. I also have to account. I also have to account. So I did not predict the deterioration of relations with the United States, because I did basically not predict the re-election of Donald Trump. And certainly I did not predict, and I get goosebumps every time I discuss it. Do you know that since August 1st, it's been 61 days or so, 2 months, 61 days. You know that August 1st, Canada, since August 1st, is designated as an unusual, an extraordinary United States. Since August 1st. So the motives given of this designation, of why this designation is put so, and it's strongly alarming. Think about that. It's so alarming that we're designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat. And alarming, super alarming, since we're designated as an extraordinary and unusual threat. And it's something that is totally undesirable. We're designated since August 1st as an unusual and extraordinary threat to the American people. Right? I'm just gonna hydrate. Super important for me to hydration. H-Y-D-R-A-D. And then we continue this conversation because it's super important, and I'm gonna slowly start going home. I'm gonna start going home slowly and get the backpack and get a bottle of water and get out HYDRAT. So August 1st, Canada has been designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat due to the fact that or the call there, the motive is that fentanyl the amount of fentanyl which has crossed into the United States has tripled. Has tripled, and it could have potentially killed 16 million Americans. 16 million Americans. 16 million. And the other motive given there is that due to the fact that there was a lack of coordination. Now, when you coordinate, you don't necessarily cooperate. When you cooperate, you might share information, knowledge, skills, etc., 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 etc. But when you coordinate, it implies joint action, right? So it implies joint action when you coordinate. It's more implication of taking action. Not necessarily when you coordinate. When you correction. When you coordinate, you cooperate. But not necessarily when you cooperate, you don't necessarily coordinate, right? So when you coordinate, you automatically cooperate. But when you cooperate, you don't necessarily coordinate. So the word there in black and white on the White House administration, given us the motive to why they had increased tariffs on Canada and Canadian goods, why we're designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat, is due to the fact that there has been a triple amount of fentanyl which has crossed into the United States border, which could have potentially killed 16 million Americans. And the fact is, and the other fact given, which is proven true by the RCMP, which sounded the alarm since about 2015, there's a growing number of super labs, drug super labs. And just last year, the RCMP, are equivalent to the FBI, the RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, has of course seized the biggest ever super lab in Canadian history in BC, British Columbia, and Surrey. So they have seized the biggest ever drug super lab in BC, British Columbia, in last year, October 25th, 2024. So in 23 days, it's gonna be a year. It hasn't even been a year yet. And the amount of fentanyl which the RCMP has seized there, along with weaponry and money, was about 95 million doses of fentanyl, which could have potentially killed the population of Canada twice over. Imagine. That's why more and more I'm designating fentanyl, the one that has been tampered with, into a bioweapon, because it doesn't make sense. $500 milliliters. Now we're good to go for another few more rounds. You have to hydrate. You know, when I'm marching already so many hours, put the backpack back on with the backpack, and the 5th consecutive march for more than 4 hours, even more than 4 hours, 5 hours, it adds up, eh? So that is very alarming. And truth be told, you know, the RCMP has warned us since about 2015, you know? Since about 2015, the RCMP has warned us since about 2015, you know? Started moving again. Now it's moving in the other direction. Interesting enough, it's moving back east and west. Maybe it's a good omen. Now it's moving towards us again. When we came, now we're going back west, us. So we were coming towards the east, and now we're going back west. It was going towards the west, and now it's going back east. So it stopped and it's going back east. Maybe it didn't have enough at the dock operation at the railways, maybe close to the docks, close to the port, the port, the port, the vessel port of Montreal. Not the airport, no, not the airport, but the port, right? So now, interesting enough, it's going back east. Look how big it is. Huge. And it's open for potential sabotage and espionage because of the DMAA, which I'm going to get into now in 2 minutes. Just to finalize on the RCMP. Oh no, wait a minute. That's another train parallel to it. I thought it was the same one. Correction, it's a parallel train to the one that was heading west. There's another one going east, interestingly enough. So it makes me think, as I say, that the FBI and the RCMP have to merge, and my new 911 Total Dragon 911 North American protocols for total security, total service, total defense have to be implemented across Canada. We have to be aware of everything that's coming in and out through the ports, and the airports, and to fuse Canada, United States, fuse the RCMP and the FBI, fuse our forces, create the Dragon Army, aka the Imperial Integrated Legion, Dragon Army, Imperial Integrated SSD Legion, the Imperial Integrated SSD Legion, and of course, consequently for the Dragon Army to be for the Imperial Integrated SSD Legion, and the DJ Dancing Goddess Army to be coast to coast, ocean to ocean, in the complementarity where we have now, of course, for the tradition of coast to coast, ocean to ocean, all that we have now into interdependent manners, of which we're gonna have to launch, of course, our east and west, northwest and south. So the RCMP last year seized the biggest ever drug super lab in Canada. What if this transnational criminal syndicate organized group had 5 labs? That means out of 5, the RCMP dismantled 1. That means there's 4 to go, 4 to go, 4 to go, 4 to go. Maybe 1 is in Quebec, maybe 1 in Nova Scotia, maybe 1 in Ontario, maybe 1 in Manitoba, somewhere all over Canada. Because since 2015, the RCMP has warned us about a growing transnational criminal syndicate groups establishing themselves in Canada, and especially during COVID since 2021. We've been warned, since 2015 by the RCMP, late 2015, 2020, 2021, that there's a growing transnational criminal syndicate organized groups. And now, just 61 days ago, 2 months ago, 1st of August, Trump's administration and Trump decides to increase tariffs on Canada, designate us. This is new for me. This is alarming. This never happened at Canada in the 21st century, in the past 100 years, that Canada is designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat. This has never happened in generations, you realize, in hundreds of years, that Canada is designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat to the American people. You realize that this is alarming, right? And that the fentanyl which cross has tripled. And of course, it's mentioned there in black and white in the White House administration government's official declaration document, that the growing super lab reality production, which can produce weekly or bi-weekly, I think the number is given there, 44 to 66 pounds of fentanyl by these drug super labs in Canada, is a growing national security threat to the United States. So you are getting shivers, I'm getting goosebumps. You realize we gotta fix it. We gotta fuse. My way to fuse best. 50-50. Granddaddy Trump is Dragon versus Trump since 2018. 50-50. We have to mass finance healthcare. We have to mass finance healthcare. We have to mass finance healthcare. Rehabilitation of the criminal. Those, of course, if you have more than 44 convictions, then rather than the Imperial Criminal Rehabilitation Act, is going to be the Imperial Dracula protocol instead. But nonetheless, we're going to get into that. Now, we're going to finalize on that. We're designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat since August 1st. Got a big problem. And the RCMP warned us about it. And now the PBO warns us we're at a precipice for the public finances, and it's possibility of between October 22nd and November 18th for a global financial collapse and an official World War III, beginning with China invading Taiwan or nuclear weapons being used. Month of Scorpio. My hope, my dream, the dancing goddess in the Dragon Kingdom, which is fundamentally a public-private partnership call to all willingly loving best. So now I'm going to discuss it fully, and of course we're going to be in concordia to all the manifestations thereof where we are now, to be suffused, and of course to integrate, and of course to be aware of all these situational awarenesses where we are now, to be discussing them. So I'm going to discuss the DRT, the debt refusion theory. The DRT, debt refusion theory. But before I go into the DRT, I'm going to discuss the DMAA, Direct Military Assistance and Action. Super important. The DMAA stands for Direct Military Assistance and Action. In parentheses, it has the C. The C is the consequence, the potential consequence for the DMAA in relation to if we take action, if we don't take action, what can of course potentially occur thereof, such as, which has occurred due to the DMAA, no doubt about it, is Russia and China solidifying their political military alliance. So the DMAA is not just a theory, it's a protocol, it's a frame of reference, and it's a working protocol for NATO. NATO's motto under 32 countries. Sweden just joined last year as the last NATO member, North Atlantic Treaty Organization member countries. If you want to finance commission to work on NATO's expansion and thereof, you can do so. And of course, I'm a great independent geopolitical theoretical analyst theorist, of course. And the DMAA, Direct Military Assistance and Action, has its consequences. So these consequences are applicable, of course, to the instruments thereof where we have, of course, them to be. So the DMAA, Direct Military Assistance and Action, has consequences, whether they are taken from NATO member countries or NATO as a whole, towards an involving getting or assist providing military, strictly military, nothing to do with humanitarian here, strictly assistance or action thereof towards countries which have their conflicts, such as Russia, Ukraine and Russia, Russia, Ukraine, because Ukraine was not part of NATO, right? Ukraine was not part of NATO, but we didn't take action directly, but we provided military assistance. Even Canada provided helmets, drones, munitions, artillery, and of course, look at that beautiful moon, of course, armored vehicles, in order to be able for the Ukrainian army to kill and destroy Russian army troops, right? So it's strictly military. Again, thank you to my anonymous friend for the discussion on it, because ASPs, we have compassion and empathy, but more by action, rather than verbal constellation. So this theory, this geopolitical theory, is not just a theory, it's a philosophy, it's a frame of reference for NATO, for us NATO member countries to follow the DMAA protocol, whether we take action or don't take action in the future, right? Because of the consequences. So just like the motto of NATO is animus inconsuelo liber, standing for a mind unfettered in deliberation, that is the motto of NATO. Animus inconsuelo liber, that means this mind unfettered in deliberation, we have to deliberate this theory, protocol, and frame of reference, whether we take action in the future, because the potential consequences. And one of the consequences could be that because of our military assistance, Russia and other countries, which we take in action sometimes in the Libya, Syria, and other countries, even Yugoslavia in 1999, Belgrade and other countries, or if we take action or if we assist in their conflicts, then we're going to assist one party in the conflicts, adversely create a potential adversary, which can use secret police and covert means, such as financing transnational criminal syndicate organized groups in Canada, to build a super lab and to kill millions of Canadians potentially with that fentanyl. You realize? So that could be a covert action, consequence, that Russia takes action on Canadian soil or China, by espionage, sabotage, hacking, by supporting transnational criminal syndicate organized groups, such as that one that the RCMP dismantled in October 25th just last year. It hasn't even been a year yet. October 25th, 2024, last year, the RCMP dismantled the biggest ever super lab in Canadian history. Just that one super lab in Surrey, BC could have killed twice the population of Canada. Can you imagine the crisis we're in? Not just financial, but we're now vulnerable to transnational criminal syndicate organized groups. This is very serious. That's why my protocols have to be established, and my theories to do a census and give some amnesty. If you steal bread, well, you steal bread. Here, take a tomato with it. You gotta eat. We're not gonna be that cruel and that sadistic. We have to give our brothers and sisters a second chance. But if you've been convicted 44 times, 44 times, then there's a big problem. There's a big problem, right? There's a huge problem, There's a huge problem. Huge problem. So the DMAA has consequences, Consequences. Direct military assistance and action. So that is one of the consequences. The consequence, which is clear, is the BRICS expanding and the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, expanding, adding countries, adding military inclusions for mutual defense pacts. China's military parade, interestingly enough, I noticed, I was quite surprised that, I still have to check it over the weekend, but I checked China's massive military parade and their declaring themselves as a superpower. No doubt they are, whether we like to admit it or not. Now they are now. Like they are now. Today they are a superpower, China. They built a massive infrastructure and mass airports and infrastructure, even high tech, satellites, even supercomputers, AI, and mass urbanization and ports. They have, I think, 7 or 8 of the top biggest, largest ports in the world. 7 or 8. So they're a superpower. Whether we like to use the word superpower or not, whether we relate to Chinese communism, socialism, whatever, whether our powers that be like to admit it or not, they are a superpower. We have to deal with China as a superpower today. Not in the 20th century, but of the 21st century now. Post-COVID, China is a superpower, has become a superpower, whether we like to admit it or not. However, when you have 7 or even 8 of the top most biggest ports for ships, transportation ports in the world, you have 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 and 8 out of 10 airports and ports with it. Well, you're a superpower, Come on, China's a superpower. Now it is. It's not just the United States. Now we have also China as a superpower. It is what it is. How they maintain their one Marxist part one, still referencing Karl Marx in their social ideology, as they were able to, and they're building their what they call their socialist spiritual civilization. Whether we understand it as North Americans, what that means for the Chinese mind and psyche and culture, that is totally of a different long discussion, because fundamentally we won't be able to fully understand their dream when they're building the socialist spiritual socialist civilization and socialism with Chinese characteristics. I know the ideology. If you want to discuss China, you have to discuss the governance of China. But what I wanted to say is that I saw the military and the parade, and all the men or the women, the tens of thousands, which I was noticing, I didn't even see one black man or black woman, That what surprised me the most. And of course, in my dragon army, I want to have black, white, and rainbow, white, black, and rainbow. And my neighbors are blacks, 13.3, 13.4. And if you're black, you're white, if you want to do that rainbow love, we do that rainbow loving. But I didn't even see one. In the tens of thousands of troops, I gotta watch it again. If you see somebody, let me know. Say, I saw one black woman or one black man there. In the tens of thousands of troops, not even one. It just, when I was looking at the Krieg Hexer and Trump's calling out the generals, which I should have been there because as a past life I served in the United States, and George Patton was my wife and I was his wife and I was his husband and he was my husband, so we were both past the incarnation. George Patton, just read Through a Glass Darkly. One of my favorite poems is George Patton, the general of the United States Third Army, one of the great generals ever to have lived. He believed in reincarnations like I believe in reincarnations, but he didn't mention his female, feminine, women incarnations. But I was his wife, he was my wife, so I should have been there. Maybe we're going to do in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead a speech. My speech would have been to the generals of the free world, and I guess I'm going to do a speech to the generals of the free world in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead as we're going to march. As we're gonna march to the mountain for the 24th, 25th of December. So what I want to say is that this appellation and this proposition is, of course, of the relationship what we have now, that I didn't see one black person in the Chinese army. PLA is maybe I'm mistaken, maybe I have to look again. If you find this video, you made it here, then let me know. Did you see? Just check I didn't see one. It's interesting because when I looked at, there's black generals in the United States, and my brothers and sisters who are blacks or white. Here, the new civilizational complex. We are new civilization in many ways. That's why we're going to fuse in the Imperial Democratic Republic of the 63. But of course, we are not divorced from Western civilization, but we are distinct in North America, and many peoples from all over the world came, and we're an emergent one. So I was just kind of surprised that, I knew the demographics of China and all that, but I was just surprised that in the army there wasn't even one, not even one out of the thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of Chinese men and women in the People's Liberation Army at the parade, you know. Quite interesting to see the difference, to see the difference in our armies and armies of NATO and Canada, United States, you know, where we have our brothers and sisters for blacks, and I wouldn't have it any other way, you know. That's what it is, the free, the brave, the strong, the loving. So now we're gonna go from the DMAA and the direct military assistance in action. Again, it's a work tool, it's a reference, it's a protocol. We're gonna go from the DMA to the DRT, the debt refusion theory, which we have to implement because that is functionality we have to implement. My DRT theory, because of the four main problems which both Canada and United States member citizens face, our fellow citizens. That's why the DRT, debt refusion theory, which incorporates in it the monetary integration theory, we have to implement it. Both Canada and United States, both countries, Canada and United States, you have to implement the DRT, debt refusion theory. Together we have to implement the DRT theory, the debt refusion theory, because we have four main problems which are affecting the majority of the population of Canada and the United States and Canada. And those problems are fundamentally that there's a growing cost of living, right? So the prices are increasing. Cost of living, bacon, bread, cheese are increasing. Cost of gas. The rents also. My rent is also increasing, but has increased already. Now I'm going to say by how much? Between $6 minimum and $10 maximum. Between 6 and 10. So between 6 and 10. So that is I cannot complain because I think that's feasible for me, and it's not a big proportional increase in terms of percentage wise, and it is below what, even according to the municipal laws and of course the regulations here in the city of Montreal, Hawk Island, Montreal, big metropolis city, would have allowed even more than that per percentage, but it is between 6 minimum for me and 10. So just, you can say either or, so you can just guess, I guess. So I can't complain. So rents are increasing, salaries are stagnating, cost of living is increasing, and credit cards, even more credit card debt. So those four for both Canada and United States. It is the DRT along with the CIT, Citizen Integration Theory, and the Democratic Fusion Theory are part of the bipolar strategy for total BDD, benevolent dominance and dominion of the world, by fusing Canada and United States into the Imperial Democratic Complex and creating the two complementary covenant cooperative institutions for the environmental SSD and security service and defense, being the Dragon Army, aka Imperial Integrated SSD Legion, and the Dancing Goddess Army. The Dancing Goddess Army, the Imperial Integrated Dance League thereof. I know that's a little bit long, but, and again, not to be confused with bipolarity as in the bipolar psychiatric psychological condition. It has nothing to do with bipolarity. It has everything to do as a strategy of a geopolitical nature. So the DRT is part of that strategy, of the geopolitical strategy. It can be expanded from Canada and United States, but we have to do it simultaneously in Canada and United States. Simultaneously in Canada and United States, if not in Canada, and then in the United States, and then throughout NATO. And of course, this is the DRT. I'm going to explain it now. The DRT also incorporates the MIT monetary integration theory. The monetary integration theory is, of course, the financial theory which was integrated in the European Union. So the DRT, debt refusion theory, is of course the DRT, debt refusion theory. Now I'm going to explain it. So because of those four problems, we have to implement it at least starting with Canada, preferably by nationally, because it's always for the 63 with me, the 10, the 50, and the 3, and then we can expand it throughout NATO and maybe throughout the BIS, Bank of International Settlements, IMF, to incorporate and absorb it at 3 clip or dry clip. And of course, here it is explained, the DRT, debt refusion theory. We're gonna take all the public and the private debt, my $10,000, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, all the debt, we're gonna add it up, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, the Canadian debt, the Canadian dollar debt, the Canadian dollar debt, all the Canadian dollar debt. Canada, we're gonna add it, of course, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. We're gonna add it up. add it up. We're gonna add it up, and of course all that debt, we're gonna add it, convert it into US dollars. We're gonna convert that into US dollars, and we're gonna go with that conversion. So we're gonna add it up and do that converted into US dollar. We're gonna add it all up with the public private debt of the United States, and all that money is gonna be added up. We're gonna create the new central bank, the Imperial Central Bank. The Imperial Central Bank. The Imperial Central Bank. We're gonna create, of course, the Imperial Central Bank, and that's what we're gonna do. Of course, we're gonna create the Imperial Central Bank. Of course, we're gonna issue the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot UE. The universal exchange unit, the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The universal exchange unit is gonna have, of course, the value of the US dollar. The value of the US dollar, of course, is gonna be protrudent, and of course that's what we're gonna be doing. We're gonna creating from darkness into the light with the DRT. From darkness into the light with the DRT. Where there's a light, I guess. We're gonna take all the public and the private debt, right? There's the moon above the light. Thank you, Hydro-Quebec, for the lights. Workers of the past. So all the public and the private debt, that money is gonna be the initial money supply for a new central bank. Of course, we're gonna create the UE, U dot universal, U dot exchange, U dot UE. The UE, U dot universal, U dot exchange, U dot UE. The universal exchange is gonna have the value of the US dollar. U dot universal, U dot exchange, U dot UE. The universal exchange unit, of course, we're gonna create, of course, the universal exchange unit. That's what we're gonna be doing, of course, and that's gonna be the new money, which is gonna have the value of the US dollar. The UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot UE, or we can call it the Imperial Dollar. Canada, United States, we're gonna get rid of the border. We're gonna fuse Canada, United States, sign the Imperial Democratic Perpetual Republic of the 63, Imperial Democratic Republic of the 63. We're gonna, of course, mass finance fitness, mass finance citizens to work out, train, exercise. We're gonna mass finance fitness activity. We're gonna construct 44 tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war. We're gonna, of course, build those 44 mass underground tunnel structures, city structures, in case of a thermonuclear war. And of course, we're gonna fuse the FBI, RCMP, finance the rebuilding of the infrastructure, the bridges, finance the building, of course, of the bridges, the butchers, and we're going to finance the rebuilding of the aqueducts, the sewers. We're going to mass finance, of course, rebuilding, of course, of our aqueducts. We're going to finance, of course, the rebuilding, of course, of the potholes, the highways. So we're going to do lots of good with that money. We're going to mass finance fitness. We're also going to create the Imperial Tourist Ministry, where every season, beginning of spring on the equinox and solstice, spring, winter, summer, autumn, all the 4 seasons, all the 4 seasons, we're gonna, of course, do that implementation, of course, of the creation thereof. And that is, of course, what we're gonna do. We're gonna finance 4 days for everybody who's 16 and over. So once you're 16 and over, you're going to get 4 days credited across the 63. As we're going to get rid of the border and do a census. We're going to do a great census, and we're going to finance citizens of all ages, 16 plus, 4 days every semester. So 4 times 4, that's 16 days a year, where food, housing, lodging, and transport. But once you pass 1 second past midnight, then you lose, If you pass 1 second past midnight, you lose your day. So 4 days, 4 times a year every season, because we're going to have officially spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And those 4 days times 4, that's going to be, of course, 16 days. And 16 days is, of course, what we're going to be drilling with that. So 16 days, that's going to be, of course, the 16 days annually. So you can take four times. You can travel from Quebec to Yukon, from Yukon to California, all across this 63 states, and transportation by plane, by bus, by train is going to be included. Don't expect caviar and caviar, and of course caviar. Don't expect caviar, and don't expect, of course, to eat caviar or to drink champagne, but you're gonna be accorded, of course, a certain amount of food. So a certain amount of food in the fast food, you're gonna be myself. I'm gonna keep it simple. Gonna do breakfast, lunch, 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Get some hamburgers, some cheeseburgers, some fries. That's gonna be good with me. And watch it. Do the slow down. Slow down. Do the 360 full circle to the left and to the right. Turn your heads left and right. Money is not that important as life is and health. And with the Imperial Tourism Program, we're gonna rehabilitate the population. I got 4 seconds, I guess, velocity wise. I gotta speed it up myself. So we're gonna get that velocity. We're gonna cross safely. So that is the dream, basically, the Imperial dream, of course, for the Democratic Republic. This is gonna establish us a strong esprit de corps. We're gonna, of course, rejuvenate our youth, and we're gonna rejuvenate the masses. It's a mass public-private partnership. We're gonna see what we have here in common. So from Quebec, you can go to California and across the 63. So you don't have to take the 4 days every day. You can accumulate 8 days and take it twice a year, or you can accumulate and take 16. But once you reach 44, you use them or lose them. So you can take 4 once you cross the second into midnight. So you leave in the morning. And then you have 4 nights, basically 4 nights, food, lodging, and transport, hotels, motels, imperial expense. That's why we need the DRT, because a lot of people, the majority of people are broke, angry, and disillusioned. This is going to fight alienation, and we have to do it. The land of the free, the home, the brave, the strong, the loving, the empire of the free, the strong, the brave, the loving, and the righteous, some just, and is going to rejuvenate us. And we're going to also volunteer to rebuild the infrastructure. We're going to create massive volunteer